think it's time we grow this dream. Get everybody on the mics together. Okay, 3, 2, 1, podcast. Hello, and welcome back to the sudden but inevitable Rebop. It has been a while, Space Cowfolk, and I gotta say, we're happy to be back with you. Of course, the sudden but inevitable Rebop is the podcast where we take one or two anime first-timers through the series Cowboy Bebop, one or two episodes at a time, depending on, how much time we have in a given week. This week, of course, is going to be slightly different for a couple of reasons. The first of those reasons being that we are going to be covering Cowboy Bebop the movie, not an episode or two of the series. So, if you've been able to scrounge up a copy, I know it's hard to find, but thank you for making the effort to find one so that you could be here to chat live with us tonight, much like our friend Callie D in the live chat. Good morning. I know that it's early where you are, and we appreciate you being here. Now, of course, I am not the only person that is here to bring you through this wonderful, wonderful movie. I have some friends to introduce you to. The first of those friends you're going to recognize, and his name, of course, is Ricky D from Best Flicks with Ricky D. Ricky D from Best Flicks with Ricky D. How's your week been?
My week's been good. I've been kind of tossed into the production chair here, but I'm learning pretty quickly. I'm having a lot of fun doing it, and I think it sounds like a great way to finish up the week and go into a good weekend.
100% agree with you. And if I may also agree with the fact that I think you're doing a great job. And this production chair is sometimes a hot seat, right? Sometimes here at SBI, we have difficulties where we have to make last-minute adjustments. We have real life going on at all times. It's the beauty of being an independent podcast. Now,
I'm
part
gonna
of that
have
beauty... Go ahead.
I'm going to have to pay attention the whole time.
Well, most of the time. The thing that I will do my best to help with is to pay attention to the wonderful people in the live chat, which also, of course, now include our very dear friend, Rosie. Welcome, Rosie. Thank you for joining us. Like I was saying, we're an independent podcast, so we have all kinds of real life happening at the same time as we're trying to make the show. And that's part of why we had to delay the show until this week. Now, unfortunately, not all of the real-life family stuff surrounding the sudden but inevitable crew has been cleared up yet. Everybody is fine. Everybody's okay. It's just that we didn't really want to push everyone into a spot where they felt like they had to sort of dance and perform, right? We want them to be in the right headspace and to have as much love and fun as they can every time they come on the show. So if they're in a spot where they're not feeling it, then we don't want to be like, hey, you have to do the show. But we love everyone on our crew, and I know that everyone out there watching and all of you listening in podcast land agree with me. Now, to that point, we do have two wonderful, very resourceful, excellent friends who have answered the last-minute call to be on our sudden but inevitable coverage of the Cowboy Bebop movie. The first of those wonderful people is a very dear friend of mine and an podcaster extraordinaire, if I may, Cameron, the host of the Green Shirt, A Newbie's Trek Through the Next Generation. Cameron, welcome to the show. You are terrifying to look at.
Trick or treat! Sorry. I'm excited. It's the Halloween season. We've got a Halloween movie here. I'm giddy to talk about it. Thank you for bringing me on. It was very last minute. I scrambled to get here. This might be the first podcast I do with 0 notes, so you will behold Cameron winging it. It should be a sight to behold.
Ladies and gentlemen, Cameron from the Green Shirt Podcast, winging it. I gotta say, my excitement level just went up a couple of extra notches, and I deeply appreciate your adherence to the Halloween theme.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Anytime.
Maybe I'm naysaying it. Would you say I'm naysaying it? Is that more on brand?
It's on brand for you.
That's forcing it, isn't it? That's a little...
I mean, that's on brand for you too, though, right?
Okay. Touche.
I love you, Cameron. Thank you for being here with us tonight. We can't tell you how grateful we are, and the live chat is already showering you with love, as you can see.
Oh, hey, Callie. Hey, Rosie. Happy to see you as well. Always.
Of course, we do have one other wonderful friend that answered the Cowboy Bebop call, and if you know anything about our show, you know that we are blessed to have in our orbit the world's biggest Cowboy Bebop superfan, Mr. Philip Krogmeyer. Philip, I hope I said your last name right. How is your week going, my friend?
You did, and it's been a pretty good week. I mean, I'm obviously getting ready for Halloween too. Look, I'm Ricky D.
Anything important happened to you this week, Phil?
Just a little thing with a new baby showing up in the
Oh,
family. So
congratulations.
yeah,
That is so cool.
yeah. No, welcomed a new kid to the family on Wednesday.
Oh man!
So
congratulations. That is amazing.
It's been an
gotta say,
exciting
though,
week.
Yeah, and I do have to say, I love that you're here, and I'm really excited to talk about the movie with you. I am feeling a little bit outnumbered by Best Flicks hats, but that's okay.
There is an easy solution to that,
and there will
Pretty
be-
sure that there is a Twist My Arm Network store somewhere out there that might just have some in stock.
Look at that! I don't
Speaking
even
of
have to set
which,
it
I
up,
was
ladies and
hoping
gentlemen.
the next time I appeared on a Twist My Arm show, I could be wearing my season 1 Sudden But Inevitable shirt, but it is still in transit to me.
Yes. Those shirts love to spend time in transit, if I may. And I can't tell you how grateful I am to hear that you've got a shirt in transit. I actually already knew that, but I didn't want to put you on the spot, so I appreciate you bringing it up.
I was wondering how much you knew.
It's one of those, like, I have the details, but I don't have all the details, but I knew. And it's definitely... It's just heartwarming to have this many friends and these people in the live chat and people going to our store. And, if I may really quickly, I'm very excited to purchase the Captain Jean-Luc Piconnery shirt from the Green Shirt store.
Which is
just
available
out.
now. That's right.
It is possibly the single most targeted design I've ever seen in my life. It's like, you have to be a listener of Green Shirt who loves Cameron's impression of Picard. And I'm like, I just want this on a shirt. This is like the second time I heard it. I was like, I want this on a shirt. And now, like, almost a full year later, I have the chance to do that. So definitely go check out Green Shirt, A Newbie's Check through TNG. It's one of my favorite shows. Now,
Please.
we have a lot to get to, gentlemen. Like, just piles of stuff to talk about this evening. So, since my friend Ricky D from Best Flicks with Ricky D, who's got a new episode dropping very soon, if I'm not mistaken.
Very soon.
Very
It
cool.
should be available either tomorrow or Sunday, depending on when I push it out there. But it's about the Many Saints in Newark, the Sopranos movie from HBO Max. I had Ryan, Best Flicks best friend Ryan, came on the show and talked about it. We have watched tons of The Sopranos together. He and I have been cramming as many episodes of Sopranos into our head as possible over the past week and a half. So we've got a pretty good take on the Many Saints in Newark.
I am very interested to hear it, mostly because I have not seen The Sopranos ever.
Another
Same.
movie continuation of a TV show, much like we're
I
talking
mean-
about today.
Ooh.
I mean, it's kind of one of those things that has to be brought up because this is the end of season 2. But you know what? We'll get there. Since our friend Ricky D from Best Flicks with Ricky D is sitting in the producer seat this evening, let's turn it over to him for a quick synopsis of Cowboy Bebop, the movie, whose American subtitle I'm not going to bring up purely out of dislike for the band who is most popular for that song title. So go ahead, Ricky.
Okay.
Warren Zevon?
I don't know.
All
that I would
right.
come on. I mean, is that the most popular version of that song?
I don't know if I
It
know the
should be.
subtitle.
I agree
Yeah,
with
I'm
you,
with
Phil,
Cameron.
that it should be. Okay, well, Ricky D has a synopsis up, so
Okay.
maybe he'll see it on there.
Okay.
I'm not sure I will. Cowboy Bebop, the movie. The year is 2071. Following a terrorist bombing, a deadly virus is released on the populace of Mars, and the government has issued the largest bounty in history for the capture of whoever is behind it.
All right, so just because I'm a nice guy, Cameron, I believe the subtitle in America for the movie is Knocking on Heaven's Door.
Oh, okay.
Other way around, actually. It was
Heaven on Knocking Door?
Excuse me. No, it was,
That's
yes.
the first thing I thought.
No, it was actually just called The Movie in the States. In Japan, it had the subtitle.
Okay.
Thank you.
That
Yeah.
makes more sense.
This is why we brought Phil, you guys. It was like, if you're gonna talk about Cowboy Bebop, you have to have Phil present because it makes the most sense. I would argue that Phil could do that for almost any topic that we would talk about. But so, right away, the production value in this movie is definitely higher than it was in the series. I mean, you can just see that the visuals are gorgeous.
Yeah,
This-
it almost looks as good as Avatar: The Last Airbender now.
I'm gonna blow right past that. This opening that just drips of Pulp Fiction, right? Like it's basically the Pulp Fiction opening, but in anime. I love this guy. I love him asking about stew mix, and then she tells him where it is. I'm not looking for stew mix. Like the tone of that scene was so I'm grown up, mature, right? Maybe the tone was so mature, but like I don't know, fun at the same time. Let's talk
Immaturely
about this
mature.
scene. Yeah, Cameron, what are outside of your blasphemous claims on quality of animation? What did you think of this opening?
I mean, you covered my initial reaction was like, oh, okay, the movie, or, Tarantino became big between the series and the movie, obviously. And maybe not, the timeline doesn't totally line up, but I bet there's a lot more Tarantino influence in pop culture between it. Like, he was coming out just as the series was being made originally. So, yeah, I mean, you can definitely see there's some QT fans working on the project now. And, yeah, I have more to say about what Spike does later on in the scene in the conversation that follows, but I feel that's going to springboard into a larger discussion, so I'll let the others talk about their first impressions.
Ricky D, what were you getting from this scene? Were you in the same spot? Like, oh, this is Pulp Fiction? Like,
Yes, I definitely caught on to that. The stylized, the dialogue, all of that, the cool factor. I mean, Cowboy Bebop is the coolest anime. Quentin Tarantino, he makes some pretty cool movies. So
Well,
it was
and
just that style.
yeah, the style of everything. And I mean, kind of down to one of the guys being in the bathroom when everything goes down. Like that's
Yeah.
that's a pretty specific detail that was also in Pulp Fiction. And the hilarity of that moment, which should be only a moment of tension and drama, right? It's like it's a perfect setup for people that never watched Cowboy Bebop, the TV show. You get the explanation of, hey, I'm just a humble bounty hunter, ma'am. So, okay, that's his job. He's not a cop. He's not with the military. Like, that's what he does. He's very good at fighting up close, and he's got a partner who has all the information, kind of plays the guy in a chair role. And we are just sort of introduced to the feel, the style, like Ricky D was saying. Phil, what are your thoughts on this opening piece, and then we'll jump to Cameron's piece that he wanted to talk about.
It pretty clearly captures the whole spirit of Cowboy Bebop wrapped up into a very compressed scene. All of the casual danger dialogue, all of the attitude on Jet and Spike's part as they're coming into this whole situation, the banter back and forth between them afterward. It's all just
Cool.
pulpy goodness. It's
I did think it was interesting that Jet, because I think it was obvious he didn't know the guy was in the bathroom.
oh yeah. Yeah.
So it was interesting that he kind of squirmed his way out of that when Spike called him on it. He's like, oh, you didn't need to know. Like, oh, Jet, feeling defensive all of a sudden.
Which is consistent with the character that we know from the show. Oh, really quickly, I want to say hello, good evening to Pixie from Project Podcast in the live chat. Good to have you with us, Pixie. But yeah, my first thing was like that we know that that's consistent for Jet, right? To be macho and not admit mistakes and things like that. But again, just that reestablishment, which is sort of similar to the last movie based on a single series television show that we watched that they took a couple of minutes to reestablish the crew for everyone at the start of. I will admit, so when I was watching this with the lovely Mrs. Sutton, she went, oh, there are pumpkins. It's a Halloween movie. And I had totally forgot about that, right? Mm-hmm. And so the shot that she pointed that out was actually a reverse shot. And I went, oh, I think those might actually just be Japanese lanterns. And she was like, and like then like a TV show, it cut to the front side of it where you can see that they're jack-o'-lanterns. And I was like, oh, damn.
That's funny. You and your wife had like an external conversation of the exact thing that went on in my head when watching it. I was like, oh, that's pumpkins. Well, is it pumpkins? That would be weird. Oh, it is pumpkins. And then I texted you, oh, it's a Halloween episode. And then it really did become, I mean, it is very, very centered around Halloween. I had completely forgotten that.
She was very excited. That was the part that she was the most excited about. She's like, you didn't tell me it was a Halloween movie. I was like, yeah.
Need to know
It
basis,
is.
baby.
Yeah, sometimes
See, and-
disinformation is important for enemies as well as allies.
See, and here I thought that was why we were saving this for October.
Well, here's the thing, Phil. I knew that there was going to be a live-action Cowboy Bebop series right? when we had finished
yeah.
up covering Firefly.
Yeah.
And I knew that it had supposed to have already come out. So I was like, okay, by the time we're done, there's a chance it might be coming up soon, right? And that happened. And then when it did happen, we were like, oh, that's great timing. And I was like, oh, I actually, if you go back and look, I planned that. I sort of semi-planned that. This, I did not plan at all. I totally forgot that this movie took place on a Halloween specifically. But that's kind of the nature of jazz. And sometimes things just work in a way that they didn't work before. And serendipity, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to go
Much
with that.
like Spike, yes. You just, you don't like to think things through. You just play them as they happens. Like when he is facing down the bathroom crook who's holding an old lady at gunpoint. And then I for a second I thought we were going to get some Speed influence too, and he was going to shoot the hostage. That didn't happen, but more or less the same kind of vibe, right? He endangers her life by playing the hero, playing the cowboy, and stopping the bad guy. And then he and Jet have a big conversation about that, and that's where we learn that Spike goes, yes, what's he say? I don't like to think things. I don't like to think. I just do, or something. Again, I don't have notes in front of me.
Yeah.
So very much I'm like, oh, this is theme stated. This is where Spike is at the beginning of this episode. We're going to see how... We don't know if he'll change because, again, this movie takes place in between an already established series. But this is going to come back and play into the film somehow. I'm not sure how it does. I'm not saying it doesn't. I just didn't pick up on it. So I'm super excited that Phil is here and you guys can help guide me through the thematic journey of this movie.
Well, I mean, it's definitely... I'll be honest. I got really wrapped up every time I watched this movie. I've seen it 3 times in 2 weeks now. And the last time I watched it, I had a conversation with you, Cameron, that made me watch it a little bit differently. So I was not super paying attention to themes. But your mention of not having notes reminded me that I actually did take notes on this. I forgot to have them open for the show. One thing I do want to point out is, a question I guess that I have is, do you guys think that because the budget is bigger, that's why we're getting brand name product placement now in the movie? Because we've got like Lucky Strike cigarettes, we've got pretty clearly Marlboros, like the Coca-Cola signs are kind of everywhere now. Our friend Rosie says she saw the movie twice. That's excellent. Our friend Callie says happy coincidences are still happy. I agree. Is that product placement like, is that a result of an increased budget, or?
Maybe that they knew they were aiming for a more international audience this time around because they already had the established audience from the anime.
I could definitely see that.
Though you still have, the golden arches flipped upside down with the McDonald's sign. So,
and I think also being
like that.
A big budget movie, it's going to have more exposure, which is going to attract some of those companies to put some advertising in there.
Exactly.
I definitely see that. And I do. And so the other thing that I really like about it is that even though it's a little bit cold opening, like that fits with the series, right? I mean, sometimes we get that little maybe 10-15 second scene and then the credits play. Now the credits here, normally I would skip past this if we were talking about the credits at the start of a movie, but the animation, this slice of life of the city here is like, it looks rotoscoped to me. My guess is that it's partially rotoscoped, but it's so realistic and just evocative of city life, right? You've got these shots where somebody barely looks up at the camera and they animate part of a facial reaction out of that person, and then it cuts to something else happening. It's just, I love that whole piece. And Yoko Kanno and the Seatbelts knocked the music out of the park. Like, I had to go look it up because I was like, there is so much versatility in this that I would not be surprised to find out they just licensed several tracks. But man, it's Yoko Kanno and it's the Seatbelts, and wow, just the music.
Every
Some of the
time,
lyrics,
man.
Yeah, every single song and the lyrics even, I was like, by the third time you watch the movie, you're hearing things that you didn't hear the first time. The song that plays at the very end, we'll get to it, but I was like, oh, I didn't realize those were the lyrics that started that. But it caught me off guard, and I love it. I really, really loved it. So, speaking of the music, after the credits, right, we get Faye's bubblegum pop, like, 90s pink girl terrorist chasing song. Like,
Yeah.
how much fun was that? And the establishment of some stakes, but it's still kind of a mystery. It still feeds us along like an episode of the show would. A lot of movies that are made on about TV shows. For example, I'm just going to throw this one out off the top of my head, like Star Trek Insurrection. One of the criticisms leveled at that movie is that it feels like an overlong episode of the TV show Star Trek The Next Generation.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this feels like a long episode of Cowboy Bebop, but I don't feel like that's a criticism whatsoever. Like, This is the longest, maybe one of the best episodes of Cowboy Bebop. So that's kind of where I'm coming at this movie from. Did you notice?
Take a moment and I mean, I kind of disagree. I mean, I do feel like it felt like a long episode of the show, and I was like, yeah. You know, you could have easily cut like 45 minutes out and made it a decent two-parter. I don't know. That's my opinion. But like, should we talk about, other movies that are continuations of TV shows and which ones we feel were successful and what makes a successful movie? Because there's of course Serenity to Firefly. I think that's an incredibly successful continuation of a TV series. Like it feels important to it. It closes it up where it didn't have closure before.
Right.
It expands the universe, answers some questions, brings the characters, to a full arc. I think that's a great example. Are there other ones you guys can think of that are good or bad examples?
I don't know of a lot of instances of it happening outside of things like Star Trek, like I was saying.
It's funny. I've been racking my brain for them, and I totally forgot about the
Existing
Star Trek
franchises.
ones. Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, that's obviously
Yeah.
one. I mean, X-Files was the big one I could think of, where like the first movie I love, like that's what got me into X-Files. I never really watched it more than occasionally before I saw the first movie, Fight the Future, and then I watched the next few seasons of the show. And then there's the much later movie, which again just feels like a kind of a decent
long episode,
which is fine, especially maybe after 10 or 15 years, whatever it was. That's all people wanted, but especially considering how that series ended, you're like, don't they have more important things to deal with right now? I think the Star Trek movies, of course they are hit or miss, but some are really good continuations, some not so much.
Yeah, well, and I mean, the best Star Trek movie, arguably, The Wrath of Khan, is a direct continuation of the character from the episode Space Seed, which, I mean, that one instance could, after the motion picture, like the way that was treated by critics, The Wrath of Khan saved Star Trek. Like,
it really did.
100%.
We would not have 3 or 4 different Star Trek shows happening right now if it wasn't The Wrath of Khan.
Exactly.
Yeah, new one just starting or about to start with Prodigy.
That's about to start. Strange New Worlds is about to start. We will have season 4 of Discovery. Season 2 of Lower Decks is happening right now.
Season 2 of Picard
is coming up. Yeah. It's a
Thank
good time
you,
to
Khan.
be a Star Trek fan.
Right?
Yeah. Ricardo Montalban, we all owe you a debt of gratitude. But that one instance, I don't know that you could isolate it, right? Because it's like it's kind of the example.
Yeah.
And then it spawned, 40 years of television and movies. So it's
Yeah.
like, I mean, you could argue that that's the one, but I don't really know. I mean, Ricky D from Best Flicks with Ricky D, you're on record as kind of loving the opposite, where they made Terminator into a television series, correct?
Yes, that is true.
Yeah.
Now, what was the benefit of that? Because for me, it's like the Terminator's movies take place in basically a closed time loop where the stakes are always A, the same, and B, non-existent, essentially. Right. So it's like, so what is there to expand on in the Terminator universe? And
Well-
do you feel like that worked?
Yeah, the Terminator series, it introduces all of these really cool ideas. The time traveling, the fate of John Connor, Sarah Connor traveling through time and teaching him. But it's all contained to a 2-hour movie or 2 2-hour movies or some more 2-hour movies that I don't want to talk about. But the Sarah Connor Chronicles, it's able to take, it was either 2 or 3 seasons. I think just 2, but they're full-length seasons, and it really explores those things and it breaks it down. And John Connor has another Terminator robot that he learns from and that he teaches, honestly. And it's just a slower, deeper kind of wading into the world.
Gotcha. Well, so Cameron, if we could stick to this point for a second, my argument for my perceived criticism that you're having for this movie is, I feel like because it was designed, excuse me, because it was designed from the start as a single season, fully contained story, I feel like this is almost an admittance that even the people that created it just want to spend some more time with those characters. So it's like, this isn't meant to add any weight to the last episode that you watched, or necessarily, because this does take place between, I believe it's episodes 22 and 23 of the
I think
series.
so, yeah, just before Brain Scratch.
Yeah, and after the
Andy
confrontation
the cowboy?
with
Yes.
Andy,
Yeah.
Who's in? Go ahead, Phil.
That you're on it.
Andy is in the parade, the Halloween parade.
I missed
As Musashi.
Yes, call me Musashi. So,
Well, no, I saw a cowboy and a samurai, because there's Cowboy Andy too.
it's my guess would be that they put them both in there as one of those.
Just as an Easter egg.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it's probably an Easter egg, but there is a point that Cameron brought up in our discussion privately that may be supportive of. Anybody in the live chat, can you think of a TV series that they made a movie on? And if you can, put it in there and we'll talk about it. I feel like
The only
are
other one I
many
can think of
instances.
is Fire Walk with Me for Twin Peaks, which I'm wearing my Twin Peaks T-shirt on right now.
Gotcha.
Oh. Anyway, and that's an example
yeah.
where it definitely feels important. I prefer the series, but I still watch it. I still
If you were
appreciate
gonna
it
watch
for what it is.
If you were going to watch the revival, you needed to have
Oh,
seen it. Though, so
100%, yeah.
Ricky D.
Well, if we're talking about movies based on TV shows, what about all of those SNL movies?
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm thinking more like
the
continuations,
sketches,
but yeah.
the sketches
could-
that get developed, like Night at the Roxbury.
That might
Wayne's
support
World.
Cameron's point.
Yeah.
A
Okay.
A lot of those were unneeded.
Another one. How about Borat and the Bruno movie spin-off of Ali G
interesting.
show?
I
Yeah.
didn't even think of that.
Yeah. Muppets.
Oh,
yeah.
perhaps.
the Muppets,
Although they're all
yeah.
their kind of like own enclosed
Yeah.
universes, each movie.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there's lots of movies based on TV shows: The Addams Family, Beverly Hillbillies.
Well, and
Brady
now
like in
Bunch.
the
But
direct
these are
continuation.
remakes, not
yeah,
It's
you're
a different
getting
beast.
things like that with like Psycho,
Oh,
where
sure.
they're expanding on the whole Bates
Yeah.
thing. And
But yeah, the Saints of Newark. I feel like there's been a couple more prestige shows that haven't had a movie, but I don't know. I mean, if those are the top ones we can think of, we'd probably.
I mean, Wrath of Khan is a pretty good example.
Oh, absolutely, and I completely spaced those, so thank you.
Rosie has the Brady Bunch movies. Those were a continuation.
There's a lot of mediocre TV from the 70s and 80s that got warmed over for movies
Yeah,
around the
there's
90s and early 2000s.
exactly.
It's true. Oh,
Addams
the
Family.
Starsky and Hutch.
Uh-huh.
Ugh. All right, let's move past that. So, do you guys think Alba City is named after Jessica Alba? I told you guys she's my wife to be, right? I appreciated that we got a name for that city. I don't know that we got that in the series. I know that they constantly talk about Mars, but I
Yeah,
don't
I was
know that they
always-
actually ever
I
said
was always
Alba
There's
City.
There's a few cities that get name dropped in the series, but
But usually they just like refer to the name of the moon or the planet, which made me wonder, like, does each planet only have one city, or are there like multiple of these cities scattered throughout?
Well,
planets.
and so
there's like reference specifically to Tharsis City at
would
one
be
point
Mars.
during the series.
Do we know what planet that's on?
Yeah,
that
that's
should
on
be
Mars.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So the
But that's actually where like a lot of the main action on Mars takes place during the series. Is in Tharsis City.
Our friend Luke, who is also a fan of the gals Meg and Carla from Bed Wed Behead podcast, is in the live chat, and he says, Luke says, Downton Abbey. Now, I'm going to make an admission here, Luke. I've never seen Downton Abbey. I've heard nothing but positivity about it, but I know they did make a movie that was a continuation of the series. So that's another point to make. I don't know, Luke, do you think they did a good job with it? Or was it like a kind of thing where you're like, I don't know if I needed this? Because you're our only point of reference now.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's good. But yes, Tharsis is the Tharsis Canyon, maybe? Tharsis is a real place on Mars now, currently. That's one of the places that we have named, if I'm not mistaken, which I have been before, but I don't think I am currently.
Alba Mons is the biggest volcano on Mars, so not Jessica
that's
Alba.
cool.
Sorry.
Now that makes good sense because that whole city is encased in that crater with the atmosphere wall around it, right? So I wonder if they just hollowed out that mountain and turned it into a crater. That would be cool. I could dig that. We have I like that when Faye gets back, they're like, oh, she might be infected. Right, and
Yeah, that's a fun
she
scene.
kind of starts like messing with them, and they're kind of like trying to avoid her. And
The looks that everyone else on the crew
Even
gives
Ed,
her.
I love that
Even
Ed, like,
Ed
joins
yes.
And what a strangely relatable moment all of a sudden for us here in 2021. Like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
stay away from the people coughing and sneezing uncontrollably.
Faye's an anti-masker, isn't she?
She was. I actually wrote, "Do we think Faye would be an anti-masker?" But I don't think she would.
She
I
shows
mean,
up and she's like, she has no idea. Like, she's so baffled why they're scared of her. Like, you flew through a cloud of smoke and saw people around you passing out.
Yep. I mean,
To be fair, and it is jumping ahead a little bit. She is the one person on the crew who gets inoculated.
It's true. It's true.
which I deeply appreciate because it means Faye Valentine lives forever in my headcanon. Luke in the chat says, it was amazing. I enjoy the experience of watching it in the theater, and it gave happy endings to more characters than the show could. They are filming another one right now. That is good to hear. I mean, I don't feel like that's usually the case, so I'm glad to hear that for the Downton Abbey fans. If I'm not mistaken, you're supposed to say Downton and not downtown.
Oh.
Now,
Simpsons.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I thought about The Simpsons. Another one where I was like, yeah, that was a decent long episode.
I would disagree there because I didn't think it was that good. I was like,
It was the best thing they'd done with The Simpsons in 10 years.
but that doesn't mean it's as good as The Simpsons used to be.
Yeah, I feel like there were episodes that were more iconic and more important to the characters than the movie was.
Marge
And
versus the monorail.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I liked
Mono.
it, but I remember mono means one and rail means rail. I remember when I was watching The Simpsons movie in the theater going like, this is like 19 years too late.
I just
mean,
liked it
was-
because they had Alaska jokes.
and I did. There were parts of the movie that I enjoyed. I think overall I enjoyed myself. For them to suddenly make Rainier Wolfcastle just be named Schwarzenegger was like, okay, that's a Family Guy sort of thing to do in my head. But we're not here to talk about the Simpsons movie, but it is a good point. Thank you for bringing it up. I really liked that they all immediately drop what they're doing when they hear the number on this bounty. 300 million woolongs. The biggest bounty that's ever been offered in the history of the bounty program or bounty system. The bounty arrangement Anyways,
Do-do-do-do.
I did really appreciate that we get to see another character who is not Spike get burned, so to speak, by the no smoking rule. We have this government guy, or was he ISSP? I don't remember what he is, but he goes to light his cigarette, and somebody's like, his like weenie assistant guy is like, "Hey, you can't smoke in here."
Yeah, he was ISSP because he then the government came and took over his
Yeah.
case at the end.
Yeah.
Jesse, when should we bring up what we talked about off screen? Because I feel like this is another point of evidence for it. Is the whole no smoking bit.
Let's bring that up right after I say, "Can we please talk about the face that Faye drew on the monitor?"
Oh, shoot, that should have been my shot of the show. I love it so much.
And she presented it as if it was going to be helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was great.
In her head, she's like, "This is exact. Like, I'm gonna step back from this, and they're gonna go, oh, I know exactly who you're talking
This
about."
is
Like,
the guy.
and
I like that she even had some of the lines on the screen to trace, and it still looked like something I would draw. I mean, I can't say anything. That's exactly how I draw.
Yeah, same.
right, most normal people draw that way. Like, why would they not just take that
Yeah.
photo and try to, which they eventually
Zoom
do
in,
anyway.
enhance.
Right, yeah.
I mean, it's a trope that they can pull image data that doesn't really exist to make it sharper, right? But
And I buy that Ed can.
well, right. And I mean, in a show, in a movie of Cowboy Bebop, we've already all admitted, tacitly by watching, we're fine with tropes.
Yeah.
Go for
yeah.
it. We're good. Like, we're fine. So, Cameron, if you would like, please introduce the potential bombshell to this discussion.
Sure. So the first time I watched this movie was a while ago, and it was a while after I watched the series. So I remember being kind of confused by it. I'm pretty sure I thought Victor and Vicious were the same people, so I was very confused. And so I went to the Googles to be like, Google, what is Cowboy Bebop the movie about? Which I did again this time after rewatching it. And I found more than one fan theory that the entire movie is a dream Spike is having. That's why it begins with him napping on the couch and ends with him napping on the couch. And there are a ton of references to sleeping in this, and especially Spike sleeping. Like Jet calls him out, you sleep all the time. So basically the whole movie, which then I think does make it more important to the series as a whole, is really Spike coming to terms with things in himself before his final showdown with Vicious at the end of the series. I do hate that trope. I hate that it's all a dream trope. Like, just why? I don't care about a dream. So none of this ever happened to Jet and Faye? That's terrible. Like, show me what's happening in reality. But like I was telling Jesse, it does make it a lot more interesting to pick apart. And I do feel like, then it does make it kind of more important to the character of Spike as it pertains to the whole series. Did you guys pick up on any of that?
Oh, yeah.
No.
No, well, I had to read the internet to
But-
pick up on it. And I was like, oh.
This was like my third time.
Oh,
Third time through the movie.
Philip,
So-
did you write some of those that I read?
No. No.
Mhm.
I spend a lot of time on TV tropes, but not that much time.
That would have been fun.
I
But
always enjoy. I always enjoy when there's some kind of like overarching theory, fan theories. This thing was all a dream, or this person actually represents somebody else. It gives you another chance to watch everything again and explore it through a new lens. And even if that lens doesn't show the truth, you're still going to see some new interesting things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, it can definitely lend a new angle to the story, even if it doesn't actually turn out to be true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, one of the other things I picked up from the movie was that it did feel like a remix of the series. Like, it did feel like there was just lots of little bits and pieces that were kind of like, DJ remixed into this new story. Like the, Wow, I just spaced everything. Words evaporated. Like the no smoking, like the what we mentioned something earlier.
Like Spike getting his ass kicked and then waking up.
Yeah.
and
Oh yeah,
there's the
seeing
shaman
Andy,
there.
seeing
and-
both versions of Andy the shaman, like just like yeah, lots of little references and repeated themes, and they were like, oh yeah, this would be Spike's subconscious, just kind of swirling around.
Well, and Spike says in the series, it's all just a dream that I've been trying to wake up from. Like he in the show talks
Yeah.
about dreams and how, his past lives and things like that. Now, for me, that was kind of one of the things where I was like, so it's not I'm not unwilling to accept the thought that the whole thing is a dream, but there are a couple pieces that stick to me that are like, why would that be part of his dream? Like, for example, all of Victor's backstory. Like,
Yeah.
now,
Which feels a lot like Grin,
to Cameron's
right?
point,
Yes.
right, to
There's
Cameron's
some
point,
remix of all of the Titan War stuff.
It feels a little remixed from Titan War and maybe some Pierrot LeFou thrown in there. He's got
Victor
some
feels like
experimentation
a
going
big
on.
mixing pot of all the villains,
Right.
And,
if you
Spike.
if you take villain and you put some Spike self-imagery in there, you pretty much get Victor. Victor kind of looks like Spike
Vicious?
with a beard.
You said
Yeah.
villain. Did you mean vicious?
No, Spike plus villain equals Victor.
Oh, okay. General
Yeah.
villain. Okay. There's
Yeah.
a lot of V words being thrown out. Sorry.
Well, I mean,
Verily.
and that's fair. And normally the villainy in the show is represented by Vicious. So yes, that would make sense. I'm pretty sure we don't have a villainy Victor Vicious bingo card square. So I think we're safe anyway. Callie says Spike lighting his cigarette in creative ways. I will point out both times that his cigarette was lit creatively with the grenade lighter, which in parentheses I wrote, yes! That was actually somebody else lighting the cigarette for him. That was not Spike's lighter. He didn't have, or maybe he was looking for his lighter when that.
Unless it
when
was
that
a dream, and then it was him lighting them.
with a grenade, right? So now here's the other thing: if everything is remixed, right? Like, and it's 100% a dream, then is there no development from the characters that we know outside of Spike?
There might be development of how Spike views them and his relationship with them.
Damn it, Rosie's right. We meant to say Vincent.
Oh, I think I've been saying Victor this whole time. I apologize. That's
I
no
blame
notes, guys. No
Cameron.
notes. Look, Jesse told me 3 hours ago to get on this pod.
Velaju.
Vincent Villaju.
Let's say
Vivi.
Velaju. We can say Velaju and always be right. Sorry, Cameron.
Call
Go
him
ahead.
Vivi.
Yeah, I'm just going to call him Vivi from now on. Thank you, Phil.
It takes his threat level down a little bit.
No,
Sounds like Ed talking to him.
What did-
Faye.
But what were you gonna say, Cameron? Like, did you think that does that mean there's no development for any of the characters outside of Spike?
Well, yeah, and I think that's the problem with a dream is then you're like, oh, okay, this whole movie is just about Spike. But like I was saying, I guess you could say it's his relationship with these characters that maybe gets developed. We learn what he thinks about them more.
Right. Well, and so does that mean? Do you think to indicate then that Spike knows that Jet is like fine if they come back or don't come back, or that like Jet will just be?
Well, I think he knows
stubborn,
because
or-
yeah, we've seen before. Again with the remakes, we've seen before where Jet's like, "Fine, you can go. I don't care. Don't even come back." And then he always comes back, and Jet's like, "Did you bring the bounty? No. Well,
Did
here's
you
the
make
noodles."
dinner?
Yeah, steak stew's cooking for you. like so he knows, and Spike knows. This is all subtext with them. So yeah, of course, I think Spike knows all of that. That when Jet says one thing, he means something else.
I could see that. I do. One of the notes that I made was I really like that. I love the rich version of Bebop because I feel like with the rich version of Bebop, we get accents, we get foreign languages, we get characters that sound markedly different from each other.
I watched a chunk of this movie in French.
Really?
Well,
Pourquoi?
the entirely
Oh,
legal manners that we used to get this movie, it happened to be in French, and I had to put it in a video converter and play with files and all of that. But I watched it twice in English, but I would go through and I was watching, looking for certain parts, and I watched a bit of it in French.
All
Those,
right.
those three men, those three like old men that are at the coffee table, that are always at the same coffee table, no matter where Spike is. They just like it was stereotypical comedic French accents. It was fantastic.
I love it. I wonder what volage sounds like in France. En français, so to speak. So Rosie is making a point that it's possible that Spike could have mixed all these characters in his head as a dream. Jet is always waiting. Faye is always getting in trouble.
There
Ed
was
and Ein are always helpful.
there was a throwback to the whole sea rats thing with a virus of some sort that has to be stopped.
Mm-hmm. Now, who is Elektra? Is she some sort of mixed version of
Represents his mother.
Faye and Julia?
A little potentially a stand-in for Julia.
Yeah, because it
Julia
was
with
kind
Faye's
of
hair.
Oh, yeah. Because it was kind of surprising when Spike is like talking about her looks and stuff. You're like, Spike, you don't like women. You've said this.
You like Julia?
Yeah, you like
Right.
one woman and blind to all others. So yeah, that
Well-
was interesting.
And she's also a lot like him. He likes a woman that could kick his ass. So it's she looks nothing like Julia. Like she's not. I mean, because it's an anime, she doesn't look like Julia because she has different hair, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And her body type is a little different. She's closer to Spike's body type, like athletic and trim and fighting around. Callie D
Well,
says
I've
Psychology 101 with Ricky D from Best Looks. It's always the mother. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the sudden but inevitable Oedipus complex.
I was just going to say the edible
Ricky D.
bebop.
No.
Cowboy Oedipus.
Ooh, we could do that.
I was going to
too.
say, my wife has been played by Jason Voorhees in my dreams before. So, like, appearance does not mean anything in a dream.
Well,
Would that have been weirder than Mrs. Voorhees?
Well, and so that's what I was going to ask. Rosie says Spike likes himself. I was going to say, have we seen Spike be, like, narcissistic, though? I mean, we've seen him be very confident. I don't know that we've seen him be, like, narcissistic. He's too easygoing to be narcissistic, don't you think?
I mean, I think that's
actually-
the only thing that keeps him from being narcissistic.
I'm take that back, because the episode with Andy, I pointed out that a lot of that had to do with ego and self-image and respect and legacy, etc. So, dang, Rosie Leon, you're making a good point in our live chat, my friend.
Speaking of legacy, another kind of throwback to the original series. You get the guys coming in with all of the old aircraft, all of the old ships coming in. It's like, okay, are we gonna dig? Are we gonna dig the space shuttle Columbia
Right.
out
I
again
wish,
in this
yeah.
one?
So that could be another remixed piece, right?
Mhm.
And if this is all a dream before Spike goes into his final confrontation, I mean, those episodes, I think up to that point, had all occurred.
And there's a lot of talk about old media, the media of the 20th century,
Yeah.
and
so
data tapes.
this terrorist kid, you guys, do we feel the portrayal of him was accurate somewhat? Do we, like, he has no sense of actual reality because he's been desensitized? Like, if I'm not mistaken, that's fairly similar to, like, some kids that have fallen in love with extremist ideologies that don't really fit their background, so to speak. Do we feel like that guy was a commentary on, I don't know, us, or was he just meant to be like a warning against, hey, don't get desensitized?
Maybe a little of both. I mean, not to go too far into it, but could have potentially been a bit of criticism on kind of the otaku culture, just the, especially, running into the people who are, living as shut-ins and not, not leaving their parents' apartment and just kind of living their whole life virtually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess what I got from it,
Excuse
I don't know if it's the right interpretation. But it definitely felt like he was someone who kind of like jumped on the issue bandwagon, or you know, he wanted to be an activist, but not really. So like he found a cause, but he was much more interested in getting high scores on his video games. So like when it came to the actual execution of that cause, you know, it didn't really occur to him what, you know, the consequences of that, what that really means and entails.
He wanted to be extremely involved, but he was also just very voyeuristic. He just wanted to watch all of these things happen, and he said
That's
some things
another
like he
good
wanted
V
to
word,
be
Ricky.
involved.
Yeah.
Like he said
The
he wanted to do
doctor's
some
in.
terrorist stuff, but in the end, he really just wanted to watch all of this happen.
Yeah.
Good point.
I really liked parts of this movie. So like the pacing of the movie, there are just like the show. There are pieces that go really quickly, and there are pieces that slow way down. The whole Spike's trip to the bazaar to be gifted this
The vase.
vase, which felt very for some reason to me was very like, oh, and don't worry about the vase. What vase? That one. Because, you know, they hand it to him and he's like, I don't want this. And they're like, I know, but you need it. That's yours.
Yes.
And he goes out and he is like in turn around to go, what the hell mode. And he sees.
And they're gone.
Yeah. And they're gone, but he sees Elektra for the first time. So he's like, oh, there's a face that I, for some reason, am slightly gravitated toward. And then it turns out that there's this marble at the bottom of this vase. And you guys, I am so excited. I love Edward's analysis of this marble. I miss Ed so much. If we could, I'd like to let Ricky D talk about Ed here for a moment, if you would like.
One thing I noticed in the movie, part of it I'm sure was the budget and the animation going up. Ed was more feminine in the movie than she was in the show. A lot of like rosy cheeks. Her body was still very angular, but there was a few curves that were kind of added to her face and her hair that made her more feminine, which is worth noting. I don't know if I dislike it or like it or whatever. It's an interesting thing to note.
Yeah, it's almost as though they, to Cameron's point earlier about knowing there might be greater exposure for the movie than there was for the series, they wanted to go, okay, let's be, you know, less ambiguous about that. And I mean, they do put the scene in for anybody still left wondering, right? Where the I don't know what the job is of this person that Ed runs into in the slums, but the person that calls Ed little boy, and then she
During
goes,
Ed's
not a little boy.
during Ed's trick-or-treating expedition.
And then
Yeah, I have some theories about that person's employment, but never
yeah,
mind.
that's my point though. Is like, of all the people to be upset about finding out that that's a little girl, like, isn't that somewhat hypocritical there? Like,
Well, because only boys are supposed to visit him or her.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I should also throw out that was totally Ricky D who made the point about the exposure, but I'm happy to take the credit for it.
Oh, I'm happy to misappropriate credit wherever I may. Phil, did you have a point to make?
I was just going to say that is one thing. I love Cowboy Bebop, love the movie, but there are some things in that have not aged particularly well.
Yeah.
Their treatment of trans characters needs a little bit of work, and hopefully we'll see something better coming out of that in the live action.
I have no doubt that we will see better in the live action. Oh my gosh, I feel
the
Mason
casting
Alexander.
the casting so far for Gren is
Yeah,
giving me a little more hope there.
100% agree with you. And I would almost say that the series treated these subjects better than the movie, because there were, when Spike was, I believe it was in Brain Scratch. It was in one episode where he's, you know, walking the beat, and he gets flirted with by a trans character. He doesn't like freak out. He doesn't yell. He doesn't, you know, make a face or anything. He just goes, "Oh, I'm actually looking for thing X or whatever it is." But yeah, in the movie, it was a little more, a little less graceful. I definitely agree with that. but I was, like I was saying, I was just so happy to see Ed and Ein again.
Oh
And
yeah.
it was like, it almost made it hurt more that I knew that they were gonna leave, you know?
In like
Um,
2 more episodes.
Yeah, and if this is Spike's subconscious manifesting as everybody, then it's just a clue that he has no idea, you know, that Ed's even considered her future or her past or, you know, who she is or where she belongs, things like that. Because all he knows is analysis and wackiness, which we get a lot of. I was really uncomfortable when Ed dove into the vase.
Yeah.
He had, like, secondhand claustrophobia.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I
that was
assumed it was like
weird.
I Dream of Jeannie's vase. That's how I kind of reconciled it.
Or
See, I
Inara's
immediately thought
shuttle.
the what baby Jessica in the well or whatever. I was like, oh no, they're gonna have to like fish her out. It's gonna be 12 o'clock news on channel
This is what this
97.
movie is about now.
See,
oh, no.
and my concern was just, her hitting the marble.
Oh,
Well,
But,
I mean,
then she pulls the whole cat thing and, fitting the shape of her container.
Ed is a liquid.
Ed is absolutely a liquid.
I appreciated the very tiny detail of the Amsterdam Treaty. Right, that's
Mhm.
the name of the treaty that banned nanotechnology-based weapons.
Mhm.
Much like the Kittimer Accords banned all kinds of stuff in Star Trek.
whatever
just-
it wants to have banned.
Yeah, like if there's something that they need to add a layer of stakes to, they can go, that's space illegal because of the Kittimer Accords, which I deeply appreciate. And if you have somebody drops off the screen on your sudden but inevitable bingo card, go ahead and cover that square up now because I don't know where my wonderful friend Ricky D from Best Flicks with Ricky D is. Hopefully he'll be back. What is that from?
Tied
I feel
up
like-
and captured by a terrorist.
I feel like somebody yelling "Ricky" is like specifically Ricky is from a movie, and I cannot place it. I'll have to do some looking. The next non-chronological note that I made was the animation of light and locations
Oh,
in this film.
oh
are
yeah.
mind-blowingly good, and we can spend a minute here because I didn't take a lot of notes for the slow chunk of the movie, I guess you would call it, because I was just so immersed. Like the first time through, I had a lot going on. My child was not quite sleeping; she was pretending to be asleep, and there was a lot of stuff happening. So I was like trying. The Giants were playing some very important baseball games, which they are doing currently as well. I'd like to say hello to Rosie in the chat. And other than that, though, after the slow piece of the movie, which of course we'll talk about, and I only refer to it because the pacing is slow, not because I feel like it's slow or not good. But after that, this movie, to quote the great Rowan Atkinson, ass. We are hauling ass. The last 30 minutes of this movie are non-freaking stop. And we're not there yet. But when we get there, it's going to just be an explosion. So, from basically the time they find out about what's in this marble until Spike essentially, let's say the tram fight. If there's anything that you guys feel like I have skipped over that you need to say, or any notes you feel like you wanted to make before we go further, now is definitely the time. Let's go, Ricky D. Have I jumped past or steamrolled anything you'd like to say, my friend?
A very small thing. I loved their steamed noodles. You just pull the string, it boils the noodles.
Right.
Genius. That's coming.
Like
That'll be here by
super
2071.
instant ramen.
Now, that's probably already available in Japan. If I'm
Well, I mean, they already make like the Campbell's soup that heats itself in the little,
right.
thing.
Yeah.
But
Have you seen
but
their McDonald's ketchup packets? They're far more advanced than ours.
self-heating ketchup?
Oh.
I don't know.
but
no.
more importantly, I wanted to talk about Ein.
Yes.
And he could be, if we're talking about this is possibly a dream, this Ein could be a perception of Spike and yada yada. But Ein is playing chess at a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
Ein gives tips to the crew fairly regularly, but I don't know anything about Ein other than He's a dog that they found.
Oh,
Do we
no.
have any theories about Ein and
So-
his abilities or his super
Intelligence.
Yes,
He's a data
so
dog.
He's a
Yeah.
data dog.
And it's funny because when I started rewatching this, like I remembered that about Ein, and he has that whole first episode. And yes, the big revelation at the end of the episode is like, oh, this was a data dog, which to Ricky D's point, we don't know much about what exactly that means, but we know it means he's smart. And I remembered like them finding out and Ein doing more. And yeah, it's only been like a handful of times when he does something moderately smarter than a normal dog throughout the show. Like I remember him being like a super like Inspector Gadget dog.
Well, I mean, there's the whole bit in Toys in the Attic where he, I mean,
Yeah.
Toys in the attic, and he's able to recognize what's going on in Brain Scratch.
mhm.
Now we had argued maybe that was like an audio cue that he was hearing, but
maybe.
but they do in that first episode, Ricky, where I believe it's the second episode of the series, but the first time they meet Ein,
Stray
they
dog
do-
strut.
They do at the end say he's a data dog, and I think they may even say something like he's got near human level intelligence or
Right.
something
Okay,
like that.
They say
That
he's
does
worth
sound
a lot.
familiar.
They say he's worth a ton of money or Mulan.
Right. And it was there was some kind of indication as to the experiment that was going on with him. But yes, Callie does agree. She says Ein is one of the things that I always felt we didn't find out enough about, and that's one of the things I love about this series and the movie and the whole thing. Right, is that you want more.
And I feel like Watanabe wanted to leave a lot of things open to interpretation throughout the whole thing.
100%. And it's, I mean, the fact that we're sitting here going, was the whole thing a dream? Is like, I mean, that's a pretty good indicator that, he's fine with leaving some stuff up to interpretation. And I got to say, the first time that the butterfly kind of flits past the corner of Faye's vision, when that happened, like, the entire rest of the movie flooded back into my mind. Because so the first time I saw it must have been 10, 12 years ago. But as soon as that butterfly went past, I was like, oh, I remember that the rest of this movie is like really intense and trippy. And I'm so here for it. Like, I'm very excited for this. What do you think, Cameron, is the significance that Spike would dream up a character that has hallucinations that isn't him? That he's also like, there's so many layers of mystery surrounding this character, right? Like, is it I don't know what the word is, feasible? Is it what's the word I'm looking for?
I mean, the only
is it
thing
too
I can
many layers?
think about that's up to the eye of the beholder. And speaking of beholder's eyes, yeah, I mean that's the only thing I can think of is that Spike has one artificial eye that always sees the past. I think the artificial one sees the past, and his organic one sees the future. So maybe just seeing things slightly differently.
Well, and to that point, I wonder if that's why he's always like, whatever happens, happens, because he's literally incapable of seeing the present moment. So all he does is like fluidly exist in the present moment. That's why he's able to be like clear water, because he's not really present. He's just like, I can see one step behind and one step ahead, which I guess fits the whole conversation that he was having with Jet about chess. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty verbatim what they were talking
Yeah.
about, so I guess that
Okay.
would fit. It's hard to argue against the point, though, once the point has been made. Like, I agree with you that I hate the "it was all a dream" thing, but now I'm kind of circling into maybe it really was all a dream, and I might be okay with it. Like, I'm not sure. But,
That's
like,
the journey I've made as well.
Acceptance is the first step.
I think acceptance is the last step.
Yeah. I thought
if I'm
grief
not
was
mistaken.
denial. I don't know.
Anger, they're all in
Targeting?
there somewhere.
Well, and so, okay, this, I have to ask, does that mean that Spike knows the just push your hand into somebody's flesh technique?
Maybe that's a deep-seated
The
fear
Kali
of his.
Ma.
Yeah, the Mola Ram.
Rum, sweet rum. Oh,
This is the right
Childhood
group.
nightmares. Childhood nightmares.
That's my 6-year-old's favorite Indiana Jones movie. He makes me show it to him all
I
the time.
forgot
The
that
one
was
with
six,
Willie.
it was 6-year-old me's favorite movie
Oh
too.
heck yeah! I
mean,
know. I know. People always talk about how it's the worst one. I'm like, maybe, but it's still also my favorite one, kind of.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of things that are derided that I definitely love. So, I mean, that scene though, in particular, I got really scared because like
Yes.
Yeah.
I forgot
Yes.
about it, and I was like, you can't just do that. Like,
You can't just like push your hand into someone's chest like that,
Yeah, I was
right?
like,
That's
is he
like
gonna-
Play-Doh,
I'm
man.
gonna pull away and be like, oh, he had a knife and he stabbed. Oh no, he just ow, wow.
Yeah, well, that's a lot of blood for Spike. I don't think he bled that much when he went through the church window. Like, it's just a lot of blood on our protagonist.
And it's like, I mean, the force that it would take to just get your fingers through skin, right?
Mhm,
Like,
mhm.
I mean, that's the other thing is it's like, would he really? Oh my gosh, you guys, did he hit him in the liver? No, because he'd be dead if he hit him.
Well,
in
I
the
was
liver.
kind of. It felt like, it had that sense that it was doing something inside. It was more than just fingers through flesh. Like, I don't know. Like you felt that was visceral.
Oh yeah.
That was some
That's a good V word.
animating. Oh yeah. We need a list at the end of this.
Voila. Indeed. No, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. That's still almost a month away.
But that like, oh, I immediately picked up what you're talking
Took
about.
me a second too.
Yeah,
Ricky.
I got you, Phil. We're
Yeah.
all
Thank you,
Ricky. About
Like
2
Halloween.
seconds
What else is
later.
almost?
We're
right.
3 days
right.
off. We're 3 days off 1 month. Wow, that was really good. Callie says I assume he broke some ribs.
I had it memorized at one point. It was
Ooh.
college
I-
theater.
Tried to make a version of it with J's out of narcissism, and it's very difficult. Yes, Callie assumes he broke some
on
ribs,
brand.
and that was why he had breathing problems. I can
Mhm,
see that.
mhm.
That would definitely cause blood loss and discomfort. And he was bandaged AF, as the children say.
Much like he was bandaged in a previous episode.
Or two,
There
or
were two. yeah.
3.
I know.
I did
And
love that.
Spike.
Again, Steve Bloom plays characters who get bandaged up a lot. I mean, if
His-
y'all have seen Rurouni Kenshin,
It's true. I feel you might be happy to hear. I watched the first episode of that last weekend.
nice.
Because there was a long delay of our show, I was like, I guess I should watch a bunch of anime now, just in case. You know.
See, and that's just a fun instance with Steve Bloom finally getting to voice a villain.
And that was part of why I was like, okay, I'm gonna look up these voice actors and then maybe go from there. I'm not related, but I'm almost all the way through Psycho-Pass, which I'm also really enjoying.
Nice.
I also started Ergo Proxy, which might be the most paranoid thing I've ever seen. and I'm
Oh,
loving
but
it.
it's
is-
so good.
It is very enjoyable. I've been sinking some serious me time into the Netflix, Hulu anime selections recently.
I really loved Kengan Ashura.
I will.
It
add that
is
to the list.
there's 2 seasons of it out so far. It is a fighting anime in the style of like Baki the Grappler.
Okay, that's the one I was thinking of that I couldn't name.
Yeah, well, so there's a new I want to say it's a new version of Baki the Grappler that's up on Netflix now too. The old one, the older Baki, I don't know. It's sorry, had an
You're good.
incoming Facebook call, but it was a misdial. My apologies, y'all.
Hey, it happened.
I promise that was not actually my spouse trying to get in contact with me to let me know that everything's going okay with the kid.
There's a good chance it was me. I Facebook call people all the time on acid.
Oh my gosh.
done that.
Okay. It's actually a real life meme at this point.
Yeah.
So we
Oh,
have
yeah.
we have a Twist My Arm Network group chat where if you make a podcast on the network, you get to be in the group chat. The only person who's ever video called anyone
My
is
pocket.
Ricky D. And he does it like, I'm not talking,
2
constantly.
or 3
but
times
it's
in a row.
2 or 3 times in a row, like every 9 or 10 days. Anyways, it was just, yeah. Anyways, go ahead, Phil.
But yeah, no, Kengan Ashura just brutal fight sequences. I mean, just visceral. You can feel bone breaking in those fight scenes.
And that's how I felt in this movie, because I was
Yeah.
like, normally when we see Spike go close quarters with somebody, we're like, okay, this fight's over.
Yeah,
Spike's got it.
he's going to kick ass as soon as he gets in there.
The brutality here, that constant, like, that up close, really fast back and forth, like, punching bag style hit that they're constantly doing to each other's ribs, like the one that Agent Smith does in the first Matrix, right?
Yeah,
To
just
Morpheus
the
against wall.
flurry,
It's like,
the
oh my
flurry
God.
of body blows.
My ribs were like, oh, this hurts to watch. And the mouth sounds. I mean, if Josh were here, I'm sure he'd have plenty to say about the mouth sounds in this movie. And the spit is flying as well. I just, man, everything is just, yeah. The evocative nature of this show has always been high, but like in this movie, I think the increased animation budget really brings all that stuff across. I mean, I got emotional, I think, 2 times in this movie, and one of them is coming up, and we'll definitely get to that. But it was, I mean, for me to feel any emotion on a Cowboy Bebop story that I know has no bearing on the rest of the Cowboy Bebop story, right, I feel is like a great sign for me. But I also am generally pretty immersed in things when I watch them, so it's not necessarily a surprise.
Yeah.
So
And
this
I mean, we know that the stakes are not as high as they would have been if this were just an episode of the show,
or if it took place chronologically after the series.
Yeah.
Like, you know, because it would, you know, that would be a whole different thing. But now the slow part, right? I'm just going to call it the slow part of the movie. Like, the first time, like I said, I had all kinds of stuff going on. It was hard for me to pay attention to. But the last 2 times I watched through it, I just found myself in love. I was like, I'm totally immersed. The music is slower. The visuals are slower. But I'm totally here for this. Did you guys have any issues? We'll start with you, Cameron. Did you have any issues with the slower paced parts of the movie? Or were you just kind of like totally immersed? Or were you like, where were you feeling? How were you feeling on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll admit I did, but I'll also caveat that by like, you know, I'd rented this from a video store. I had 3 days to watch it. I put it off for 2 days. I had to finish it that night. It started kind of late. I think I had to pause it at one point to put a kid back to bed. So I did, like, I was kind of keeping an eye on the clock, being like, oh, I don't want to be up too late. I got to get some sleep tonight. So there was a point about the slow part that you're talking about just after the monorail fight where I did pause it and I was like, oh shit, there's still an hour left? I feel like, I felt like there's like maybe 20, 15 minutes. I feel like we're just about to hit the third act and the big climax. Yeah, no. So I did. And I think even in without that added exterior pressure, I think I'd still think like, it's a little slow. I mean, that's why I think you could shave 40 minutes off this episode and then make it a pretty darn good 2-parter of the series. Like, I do feel there is some fat. Now, it's poetic fat. It's beautiful fat. It's fat that you can definitely pick apart to back up your dream theory. But
fat is an important ingredient for flavor in any dish, my friend.
Even a stew.
Even a stew, but that's not what makes a stew a stew.
No? Oh, the meat.
Well, it's a stew mix that makes it the stew.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Which I thought was like, no effing duh, right? Like, that's not a metaphor, guy. Like, is that Spike's subconscious non-ability to construct a metaphor through his representation of a
I did wonder.
Is that his subconscious criticizing Jet's cooking?
Exactly.
no meat?
Right.
Where's the
Oh my
beef?
You need meat for a stew. Who cares about the mix?
It really does all fit. That's terrifying. Okay, so then what about Steve, the scientist? Like,
Oh,
is he there just as a subconscious ego boost for Spike to like?
look,
Spike
you
goes-
understand the science of what's going on.
And I'll also have another character in my dream ask her out, and she doesn't want to go out with him. But when I ask her out, she'll be totally down. Like,
Sure.
is that an ego trip? Like,
I mean, as we've always said with Cowboy Bebop, it feels very tropey, and I'm sure Spike has seen those movies and knows that if you got the hot femme fatale, there's got to be the nerdy scientist guy who wants to hook up with her.
The
yeah.
guy who makes the haunted mansion joke in one of the latest Predator movies.
I don't think I
Oh,
saw the
oh,
latest Predator
God.
movie.
I haven't seen the most recent one. Sorry.
Oh,
Oh, you're good. There's
I want to.
and we had mentioned
it was the 2018
The Shane Black
Predator
one.
It's so Olivia Munn actually plays like the lead scientist in there,
and Keegan, right?
And
Michael Key.
Yeah. But there's
Yeah, I'll see that one.
there's a guy there. They got the whole like underground complex, and as the elevator's going down, the like tech guy makes this comment about like references the haunted mansion. And someone else is just like, every fucking time.
That's the only one I haven't seen. I really liked Predators.
It's okay. I mean, it's Shane Black doing a Predator movie.
Yeah.
I'm in.
I liked
Fred Decker
really
too, right?
liked-
He had
Yeah.
something to do with
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
He was the co-writer.
it. Yeah. My Monster Squad boy. He can't do any wrong.
That's not the one with Adrian Brody, right?
No, that was Predators.
See,
Which I
like
enjoy. I
that
enjoy
one.
Predators.
I like that one a lot.
Topher Grace in that, man.
Playing
That was
a villain.
That was the only place I've ever liked the casting of Topher Grace outside of that 70s show. Did I? Oh, I just scrolled past my note. Why did I do
Well,
that?
just talking about Spike watching stuff.
Yeah.
Just bringing up movies in the universe of Cowboy Bebop. I talked on my last appearance how much I enjoy like whenever cartoons, animated shows do like bad TV effect. Man, the old film effect they did on this animated show was mwah, it was so good. I mean, you're gonna get this film geek in the heart every time you have like an old drive-in scene in a movie anyway. But when it looks that good.
How cool is that fly-in movie theater?
Yeah.
It's a
like
brilliant
so cool.
idea. I loved
It's like
it.
a city block-sized set of parking garages that you can just park your spaceship at and watch an old movie. I really dug that. Really quickly, we had mentioned Steve Bloom being in a couple of different series. In the voice credits for this, I saw Jennifer Hale. If I'm not mistaken, that's the voice of Cortana from Halo and like a million other things, isn't it?
She is the female version of Commander Shepard in the Mass Effect games.
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, Jennifer Hale is a very prolific voice actor.
She's an incredibly prolific voice.
And she did Elektra in this movie, and
Yes.
in the English,
in the
dub,
dub,
of course.
yeah.
yeah.
But no, it was Jen Taylor
Taylor
is
thank you.
Cortana.
Taylor,
Jennifer
I knew it
Hale
was
is
a Jennifer.
likewise all over, though. I mean,
Yeah.
Knights of the Old Republic, Baldur's Gate, Overwatch. She's everywhere.
Much
So
like the aforementioned Steve Bloom, and nowadays you've got Fred Tatasciore. I don't know how to say his last name, but he's in literally everything. Phil Lamar's in almost everything as a voice actor and an actual actor. But
fun thing with Steve Bloom and some of the other voice actors from the series. You know who Steve Bloom is currently married to?
Judy Bloom.
It's not Wendy Lee, right?
No, no. Mary Elizabeth McGlynn.
And who's that?
Julia.
Really?
Oh shit.
Yeah.
He got married to
Yeah,
the
no,
voice
Spike
actress.
so Spike and Julia, I did some digging on this earlier tonight because I was like, I gotta make sure I got my voice actor stuff down right. So Steve Bloom is married to Mary Elizabeth McGlynn, who was Julia. Yes, Spike and Julia are married in real life.
That's so cool.
Previously, before marrying Steve Bloom, Mary Elizabeth McGlynn had been married to Darren Norris.
He did
Darren
not play
Norris.
Vicious.
Okay, no,
Okay.
didn't play Vicious. Played Vincent.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not Victor, right? Vivi? Are we talking about Vivi here?
Vivi.
Okay.
Played Vivi.
Wow. Interesting.
So Darren Norris is also like half of the cast of Fairly Odd Parents.
Oh wow.
He's
So it's
Timmy's
like
dad. He's Cosmo. He's Jorgen. He's literally like half of the cast of Fairly
The
Odd
voice
Parents.
actor world is like super small.
Wow.
It's
I got to get in on that.
It really is like, and I say this having met like a lot of voice actors over the years that I've been going to anime cons. most all of them know each other.
Man.
Anybody who works for Funimation has like lived in the same part of Texas at some point or another as everyone else there. So it's
Oh, and speaking of, we get a confirmation that Punch and Judy are speaking in a future space Texan accent.
Space
Faye-
Texas.
What does Faye say? She's like, "What's Texan for stupid?" Or
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
but yeah, and 100% Callie and Rosie. I told you Phil would have all the fun, cool facts.
That was a tapestry of information.
Yeah, which
that
is
was
also
Tapestry of Quiet
the name
Desperation.
of a Next Generation episode.
This is a
So-
podcast, isn't it?
Tapestry.
You do have tapestries, don't you?
We have a podcast, and
So
we
this
have many
tram fight-
tapestries.
This tram fight is super intense, and it
Mhm.
kind of marks like the end of the first episode of this 2-episode
Mhm.
movie.
Yeah.
right? Like
I
if it were-
really
if it were
wanted
two
that
separate
tram.
episodes.
I really wanted that tram to go around a loop and for Spike to shoot from one car into another car.
Oh.
That would be cool.
This isn't Snowpiercer, Ricky. We're not shooting from one car into the other on the same train, man.
I will say that was a pretty intense ending. I mean, except that we, of course, know everyone lives. But I
Right.
was like, so what's going to happen? Where's Spike? And like, same with Faye. I was like, I mean, I know she survives, but how?
But-
Because we don't know about the inoculation yet.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that was a cliffhanger for sure.
And
Oh
they left
yeah.
us to wonder for a while because the whole time Spike is getting better. We're like, okay, this is good. This is good. Wait a minute, where is Faye?
Yeah.
Like, we still
Oh
have
yeah.
not seen Faye.
They
Where
leave the
is she?
Faye thing. Yeah.
That
and-
yeah. Faye is kind of left on the floor for a while.
Poor Faye.
Well, and we get that direct parallel, right, when Spike and Elektra are in prison, and we get the long shadows and lots of silhouettes, right? And they're talking back and forth about, what they're talking back and forth about. And then we have that intercut directly to Vincent sitting in the window with long shadows cast, and it's just he and Faye in this room alone talking about what's going to happen next, right? So it's like you get the long angular shadows on the good guys and on the bad guys. Callie says, do you notice the timing of Faye going, how do you say useless in Texan? And then the next second Ed goes, Faye. I was so sure she was causing trouble.
That's a good catch.
It's a nice,
That's great parallel. It's
a nice
just
wink
fun
to the
structure.
audience. Yeah, like we get to know that's, yeah. And Faye, to the point of maybe it is all a dream, has literally zero character development because the last thing she does is ask, hey, you want to go to the racetrack?
Yep.
So
Well, because what's one of the next spots where she gets her next big chunk of character development is in Brain Scratch.
Yep. And she's
And
just lost and all this. Yeah. It fits so well it doesn't surprise me, right? Because the planning and the execution of the whole series have been immaculate and gorgeous and just mechanically perfect up to this point. So it definitely doesn't surprise me. This scene is definitely a little uncomfortable where she's in the wooden apartment with just Vincent and go ahead.
And the body of
Oh yeah.
Vincent and a dead guy. And we have spent the whole series, if not ogling Faye, the camera has been treating Faye a certain way, right? And so to see somebody actually throw her down on her back and clip the clasp on her shirt is a little bit jarring.
Well, it is because even though the cameras kind of treated Faye a certain way, but it's like the way, sadly, we've come to expect from
the
Final
male
Fantasy
gaze.
games, from
Right.
anime,
It's-
anything. You expect the camera to look at a woman that way, but character-wise, story-wise, like her sexuality hasn't been on display that much, like very little, really, considering. So yeah, when it goes from like not 0 maybe, but 5 to 60 in this scene, you're just like, oh wow.
And it's now this is gonna that kind of makes me wonder, how does that piece fit into the dream theory, right? Because she's not laid bare, like he doesn't fully strip her or anything, but he does make her vulnerable, and it's
more so than almost any other character does in the series.
right. And it's the one moment where we're like, okay, the control here is the dynamic of control here is definitely not how we want it to be.
Mhm.
Like we're very uncomfortable because of the position that Faye is in, and like this is very, one of the visceral moments of the movie.
Mhm.
This is the first moment that I got emotional in, and it was actually not this part. It was actually right after this when Faye pulls the knife out of the dead guy, and she says, "Rest in peace, kid." Like that actually kind of hit me in the
wow.
heart because I was like, "Shit!"
Yeah.
Like she's actually meaning that. Like she didn't want to have to kill that kid. She just wanted to turn him in for the bounty. She kept calling him a kid. She knows that he's a kid. Like she had him dead
She
to
never
rights, and
wanted him to
she-
die.
Right. She had him dead to rights, and she fired the gun next to him to try to scare him. Like she could have killed him had she wanted to.
Oh yeah.
And it was just like
if it hadn't meant that she would have lost the bounty.
right. And but it also shows that there's some compassion there because she's like she says kid in a way that is like, I know this wasn't your fault. I know you
It's
got
not
in over your
purely
head."
pragmatic. It's
Exactly.
Well,
It's-
they've both been victims of Vivi here, so.
right. And she's probably got a little more. She's more understanding of it. Like she's like, yeah, I was chasing after this guy. I could see why he would attack me,
Mhm.
because that kid was definitely caught off guard. He thought he was gonna get paid and just live out the rest of his days kind of alone in a weird.
Playing video
terrorism
games,
world.
getting to
Yeah.
meet, I forget what level or bad guy he wanted. I guess what it would say about Spike's subconscious maybe is just that he sees Faye as a victim and always needing to be rescued and helpless, which, to be fair, he probably thinks that. More, I think what the scene says is that they were making a movie and could get away with a harder rating, and that they were showing that.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
it almost felt like a little kind of forced in that way. There's a couple of,
Yeah.
there's some language stuff, and there's a couple of moments where I was like, oh yeah, they're showing that they're not on Cartoon Network anymore.
The guard walking up to the car and going, "Hey, where are you guys going?" and then getting shot directly in the face, like no
yeah.
hesitation. That was definitely that would have gotten one of the warnings on Hulu.
Mhm.
Were we watching on Hulu? The gun animation in this is real visceral. Like we have, specifically on that tram fight when Spike's got his gun pointed at Vincent, Vincent's got his gun pointed at Spike, and then Electra comes in over
Oh,
Spike's
yeah.
shoulder, and you see the animation on his gun barrel just barely like ease over like a couple of degrees and then fire.
Just a slight shift of focus.
Yeah, it was. I mean, very
The
well
line
done.
work.
Well, we
The
know-
line work in that whole sequence with the pistols being aimed down the line on the tram was
The
just
perspective all through
oh,
that fight.
this one's
Yeah.
gorgeous.
Seeing the bullet
Absolutely gorgeous.
was a reminder that we know these filmmakers like themselves some John Woo, and
Oh,
are
God, yeah.
continuing to be inspired by him.
Yeah, yeah.
I
and we-
didn't quite get the whole dove scattering thing, but they'd
Yeah.
already done that in the series.
Oh,
So,
exactly. Oh,
you know,
oh man, yeah.
don't want to
We had it.
spoil
what I was-
anything there.
Yeah,
So,
last episode when Josh was like, "Did he die?" I was like, "Did you see the doves, Josh? The doves practically ripped Spike's soul from his body and threw it into the air.
straight to the afterlife, and then his star went out.
It's the doves." Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I understand Josh's reticence to let Spike go. Fully
No,
understand.
Oh yeah,
I know.
no, that's
And not everyone knows that doves
And-
mean death in certain filmmakers' ouvroirs.
Yeah. And I'm actually really glad that we have
not
Phil
a V
here
word, but a
because
good one.
There are V's in there though.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm glad that we have Phil here because I didn't know if Ricky D or Cameron would get this reference, but I did notice the studio Gynax in the credits. Phil, do you think they were brought in just for that scene where Faye's clasp gets clipped off of her shirt and then she kind of rolls around on the floor with her coat hanging open? If you're not familiar,
This
I
must be
really-
a great joke.
I really hope that wasn't the only reason that that Studio Gainax is in the is it. Okay, Ricky, I got another single season anime for you. It is only 6 episodes. In fact, not only is it a single season anime, it's only 6 episodes. Go watch Fooly Cooly.
yes.
That sounds like something I could watch.
Good luck. Good luck looking it up. When you type in the search, type in FLCL. It's not spelled Fooly Cooly. It's spelled FLCL. But yes, The studio has a reputation, and Phil,
They-
I'm just so happy that you were here to appreciate that joke.
Studio Gainax is known for two things. And no, that's not going to be a left and right joke, but I guess I could make it. Studio Gainax is known for their animation of breasts and for their series endings. Looking at things like Evangelion, and I just yeah.
So it's actually just been turned into a verb. Now sometimes
Gainaxing.
when breasts move in an unnatural anime style way, it's referred to as gainaxing. So
the video game version of that would be Team Ninja.
Dead or Alive
the
series.
Dead or Alive,
Yeah,
and
that one's
Ninja
speaking
Gaiden.
to me.
Wow.
Yeah. No, think Team Ninja, but for anime.
So there's a lot. The movie is very long. It's difficult to go chronologically. I would just like to take another chance here to say, Ricky D, do you feel like there's anything that you'd like to bring up that I may have steamrolled past your opportunity to speak on, or anything like that? And after Ricky, we'll go with Cameron, and then we'll go with Philip.
Just another really brief one. I just wanted everybody to remember Ed in her jack-o'-lantern suit going around knocking on doors.
Very good.
I don't know if a whole lot
Super
needs to be
cute.
said about it, but it's worth taking a moment to stop and think about it and how fun and cute that was.
That was amazing.
And the cape. A jack-o'-lantern head and a cape. That's the whole
cape.
costume. Like, I love it.
I mean,
Halloween
literally just
person.
picked up off of the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
here's a jack-o'-lantern. Here's someone's sheet that was hanging from a clothesline.
Well, here's what
on
needs
his
to be
costume.
Ricky D, not to take anything away from that, because that was very cute and lovely. But even better was when Ein had the jack-o'-lantern head. That
Yeah.
now that I'm thinking, that would be my shot of the show. That was so funny. And just the animation, I don't know why. I'm a cat video person, not like a cute dog person, but that scene was so adorable with Ein.
It was so cute that Cameron is going to destroy his ability to talk about it from here
Nope,
on.
I'm back.
I mean,
It was definitely. It felt like the most innocent fan service ever. Like, to go from Studio Gainax to this, but it was all fan service.
They
Like,
served all the fans.
We just wanted to see Ein and Ed hang out and be wholesome
and just have
learn some stuff.
fun, be happy and safe doing.
She goes, I'm
Whatever.
going to send you my exact location right now. Faye goes, sweet, don't move. Then some kids with candy walk by, and Ed's
And
like,
Ed goes,
"Peace."
ooh.
And Ed and I
Easy
walk
candy.
off.
I
Just
had-
like they're going to do in a couple episodes.
Strong.
Cameron,
Aw,
that-
I'm sorry.
I got strong Gur from Invader Zim vibes in that moment. She was like, I'm going on a parade. So,
Very good.
I just, and way to tug at those heartstrings there.
Yeah.
Did you guys catch the actual full-on like X-wing laser sound as part of the mix on the railgun for Spike's red Corvette when he fired it into the wall to like use the wall as his missiles? Right.
Mm-hmm.
There was somewhere in the mix of that railgun firing sound, there's an actual X-wing laser quack, that whack thing that they do. Right.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was very, very subtle, but it was definitely in there. I loved the chase scene. We've got
It
these
was.
3 fighter jets from that terrible movie Stealth are after jet, and
I was
outflies all of
waiting.
them. It was like,
I was waiting after the first Jessica Alba reference. I was waiting to see how long it was going to be till someone mentioned stealth.
I mean, the jets are from Stealth. They look like the robot jet. Now, to be clear, I never saw Stealth, and I never will see Stealth.
No
But
one
I
did.
remember the
It
previews.
actually, I mean, that it was very true to the title. No one
legitimately.
ever actually saw it.
Yeah, it legitimately made like
It's the
no money.
weirdest thing.
Yeah, but Jamie Foxx is still making money and on TV, etc. I mean, the
He's
guy
doing
is
all right.
talented. Yeah, he's good at what he does. But this scene, I mean, we knew we were gonna get it, right?
Oh,
Because
yeah. There's
we
got to
get
be a
this-
flight chase.
Yeah, and we get this in the episodes where it's available, right? And I just there's nothing surprising about this scene. There's nothing that catches me off guard about this scene. I know Spike is going to outfly these 3 jets. I know, regardless of what their weaponry is, he's going to outsmart them. Still enjoy the hell out of it. No question asked. Like, I have no complaints about this chase. I really like that he used multiple tactics to get rid of the same threat. He uses chaff on the missile sometimes. He uses debris on the missile sometimes. Sometimes he just flies it, real close to him and then into a wall, sort of a thing. The distances that are shown in this chase between where the bullets are landing and where his wing is, like how far ahead he is of the fire, is like so well animated. Spoiler alert, my shot of the show comes from this chase. I felt like
I love any well animated dogfight. I mean, it's just
and
the tracking with the cannon is
100%.
is accurate. I mean, just the way that they're used, they're dragged across a target. You're not,
and that pulled arc where they're hitting closer and closer, but also still behind. It's like, it's such a well done thing. What were you gonna say, Ricky?
Oh my god, I can't believe I lost it. Oh, the distances. You mentioned the distancing during the dogfight. The whole movie, I was fascinated by how clearly everything at the forefront of the camera was drawn, and the extreme limited detail to things that were far away.
Yes.
I couldn't stop focusing on that. That was really good animation.
It looks like they're messing with depth of focus in an actual camera lens. It's like I said about the series, it looks like it could have been painted over live action, and I'm fairly certain there are a couple sequences in this that actually are painted over live action. But yeah, that was one of those things. I mean, all the way through, and the film grain, even on the very high definition Blu-ray that I was watching. I mean, the film grain is just, there's something about it that just adds to the experience, like, of watching a movie, even though it's animated, and even though I know that film grain wasn't really necessary.
No, but I think that speaks a great deal to Watanabe as a director. I mean,
100%. Because
he knows his cinematic techniques.
Yeah.
He very, very clearly knows his cinematic techniques and how to make them work in the animated format, not just in, live action.
A detailed point on that thing that I really appreciated was that we got the movie version of the shot of the Bebop's fins slicing into
hitting the water.
I thought of you when I saw that.
I'm so happy to hear that.
Like, there's Jesse.
Yes, that makes me so happy. If we come away from Cowboy Bebop with nothing other than Jesse loves attention to detail and narcissistic characters, then I'm
water
happy
effects.
Yeah.
Water effects.
Yeah, just well drawn water of any kind. Cameron, do you feel like there's anything I've steamrolled past other than most everything up to this point that you'd like to discuss?
No, I think we covered it. I'm glad Ricky brought up the pumpkin so I could remember my favorite shot of Ein in it, and that's I think I'm good up to this point.
Excellent. How about yourself, Phil? Is there anything you feel like we didn't talk about yet that you'd like to talk about?
I don't think so, but I did also watch this like a week and a half ago in anticipation of what I had thought the original scheduled thing was going to be. But hey,
right.
It works out all right because I'm able to actually be here this time. So
right. And may I say again to the both of you, I deeply appreciate you guys being available on essentially no notice to talk about the movie with us. It's very cool. Cameron, go ahead.
Yeah, I did remember. I just wanted to double check with you guys. So he meets the grenade lighter guy again.
Yes.
Who kind of gives him a little exposition dump there on the stairs. And we're all to presume that he is the scientist.
Oh, he's absolutely,
right?
He's absolutely the doctor.
Oh, man.
That is...
Why, you didn't pick that up, or you don't agree?
No, I missed it.
No, okay. I am 98% sure.
But it was, I kept thinking
that he is. I mean, how else would he have gotten the sample marble into the vase?
Well, there's just he says something that's like the man thought this, and I was like, oh well, he's him. But then I kept kind of waiting for the big reveal, and
he never
Watan-
does.
Yeah, that's not. I'm
So for
Watanabe.
me,
Watanabe. It's not his style. He's just going to let you
no, it's
squirm
not.
and wonder.
He's gonna leave that open to some interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
but it's for me, it's just a crack because for Spike to go, oh hey, by the way, I got you something, and then just jacks him right in the stomach.
yeah.
Yeah, poof.
And he goes, hey, give that to that scientist. If you ever see him again.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
the
and
science-
I
and the
think
guy
there's a lot
goes-
of yeah, well, I did have that coming.
Yes.
Right, because he doesn't say like, hey, screw you or anything. He goes, all right,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
how it's gonna
yeah.
be. Okay, like I think that's him sort of acknowledging, like, I suppose that's fair.
Yeah.
Now, my question on that is, immediately when he walks away, Spike gets surrounded.
Oh yeah.
So, was that guy working for that company still, or
Churnius.
B, able to get away before Spike was? Like,
Yeah,
Oh,
I
I'm
wasn't
sure
down
he
that
was
rail?
able to slip back into the alleys. I
Is
mean,
that we're thinking because of that rail? And that rail, I mean, he slid down a rail that's like 50 meters long. Like, that had to be terrifying by the time he got to the bottom.
Yeah, like some skateboard punk. He's just like, see ya.
he's building up so much speed.
Gonna grind this. Yeah, but I did, and I liked that he smoked a cigarette with a pipe. Like, that's a little weird, but I did like it. It was a fun little touch. Like, put it in the end of it and then lit it, and it was,
Yeah, I mean,
That grenade lighter has got to be
They-
a thing you can actually buy, though. By the way, I'm sure
There
I'm
that-
pretty
used
sure.
to be, like, when smoking was an event that you did with friends, they had all kinds of crazy ashtrays and like centerpiece lighters, and I'm almost positive that's a thing.
I would not be surprised at all to find out that the grenade lighter is a somewhat popular novelty lighter.
a quick Google search says yes.
I think I've seen one that was a bullet, or it was shaped like a bullet, right? Like it wasn't actually
Or guns.
a
Yeah, I've
bullet,
seen guns.
obviously. Yeah, I've seen a couple of those. Let's see. I love the. Oh, so do we think it's possible that the crop dusters are a like loving reference to Independence Day? Because wouldn't this be slightly after?
Oh, it would be a
Independence
while
Day?
out, or a little bit. After,
Slightly,
yeah.
if because it was 96.
Independence
yeah, and then
Day.
this
Yeah,
was
this was 2000s, right?
2001,
Yeah.
2002. Yeah. So, but I mean, I love that we got to go see
What
the
do you
old
got,
guys,
Roland Emmerich?
and it was like, it was one of those.
Yep, 1996 for Independence Day.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
fun
so
that they
this
got to
is-
play an integral
So-
part finally.
That has to be part of it, and I love that. Even Jet is like unable to get that they're messing with him. He's like, hey, going to Saturn, right? Like, gonna do.
Oh, yeah.
Just
Space
trolling Jet the whole
Yeah.
time.
She's like,
Well, I
"What
love
are
that
you
we
guys
find
talking
out
about?" He's like,
that they're
"Calm
ex-bounty
down."
hunters.
Yeah.
That was a cool reveal.
Yeah.
Or at least Spike would
Or-
like to think they are.
Or they claim to be.
Yeah, or
I
they
Right.
claim to be. Yeah,
I mean,
We've heard those guys give so many versions of their past.
sure.
if I'm going to have a past, I'd prefer it to be multiple choice.
Well, and they have the what's the word for it? They're not like the
Sex
everyman
appeal. That's what
character
you're
or
looking
the
Man.
That's why Studio Gainax was brought in.
Yeah.
Was to,
Studio
Animate
Gainax,
those two.
animating your 3 old men who have been
that's
here
right.
throughout the whole thing.
I can't wait to see them in the live action. By the way, because
Mhm.
we've seen them. They were in the trailer, and
Yes,
I'm
they
very
were.
excited.
That
So.
was just glorious.
So let's, if you guys are not opposed, let's talk about the end.
Mhm.
We've got this very cool set piece of the Tokyo
Halloween parade.
Yeah, the Halloween parade, but it's centered around this possible amalgamation of the Tokyo radio tower and the
Eiffel
Eiffel
Tower.
Tower.
Mhm.
The city has parts of it that feel like Japan and parts of it that feel like East Coast American city. There's all kinds of
Morocco.
mixing. Yeah, Morocco. You've
Yep,
got the different
there's-
districts in town and things like that.
Which is
but-
going to be the case for any place where immigrants settle.
Right.
So, humans move to Mars, they're going to take their culture with them.
And we
So-
got that in the show too, because there's
Oh,
like
yeah.
the
Oh, yeah.
little Chinese district of the Stray Dog Strut episode and things like that. So we know that there's a showdown coming. We're fine with it, right? We know how it's gonna be Spike versus Vincent. We're cool with that. We know that's all gonna happen. But the animation here, this is the fight that hurts to watch. Like there's some great camera work. There's some excellent angles going on. The butterflies are so ethereal, and just this whole scene. I love this scene. Let's start with Ricky D. As we're going into this final showdown, what are you thinking? Like, okay, Spike's gonna kick this guy's ass this time, or he's gonna get saved at the last minute. Like, did you have what's the word? Like an idea of what was about to go down going in?
Well, unfortunately, we know that Spike's not going to die, or at least he's not going to die any worse than he has previously.
Right.
He's already died this episode.
Yeah.
So we know that he is going to be the victor of this fight, basically. So that takes a little bit away from it.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, I was excited. Whether there's stakes or not, you still enjoy a good fight scene. There's still plenty to enjoy.
Yes, yes. It's still another V word for y'all. It's still a visceral fight scene. It's still, it still has that intensity.
Who will be
Even
victorious?
even if it doesn't hit the same stakes as the chronologically upcoming fight with Vicious.
Well, because we've seen Vincent whoop ass on Spike specifically.
Yes.
Like, we know that he could take him. And he
Been there, done that.
Yeah, and he kind of actually does win this fight again.
Yeah.
He's got Spike dead to rights at the end. So if it's all a dream, is this Spike subconscious saying there are some fights you don't win, or there's a fight coming up that you can't win, or maybe
See, that's
you need
good.
to redefine your victory condition, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because Spike's always talking about, hey, I don't care about the world. Go ahead. But that's not true. He's just set up a plan to make sure that everybody is fine, right? Like, Spike always does the right thing, even though he says whatever happens, happens, and I only care about me. He still always does the right thing. And so is this his reassessment of his victory condition, or is this just a fist fight where he gets his ass kicked and gets lucky at the end of it?
Well, ironically, if this is a dream, that does actually kind of add some stakes, because it does kind of come into play. Where is Spike when he leaves this world, when the doves rip his soul from his body? Maybe has he finally come to peace with the dark side of himself? Has he realized maybe the reason he loses, but what's her name?
Julia?
Electra.
Electra.
Maybe the reason she saves him is because he realizes he needs his friends, which of course is not the lesson he takes into the final episode. So maybe that's not what this means. I'm just kind of talking off the cuff here now, so feel free to interrupt with. Yeah, but I think you do. If this is a dream, then that's what's happening. He's battling his darker half, his past. He needs to get to that place where he can die. Maybe not happy, but satisfied.
He needs to be at peace.
Exactly.
Well, but does it put him in the mindset of maybe my personal vendettas, a la Vicious or Vincent, are not quite as important as the greater good, so to speak, right? Because he's in this instance, he's making sure everyone is vaccinated, and in the instance of the series, he's making sure that like this really psychotic, crazy dude does not take over a crime syndicate, which in theory is probably for the good of the many.
I think what it means is I feel like Spike has always kind of battled with how different is he from Vicious? Like, is he and Vicious really that different? Are they, because they're both cut from the same mold, but is he a good person, or is he more like Vicious, which is what Vicious is always saying. I feel like that's a weight that Spike has always carried with him. And I think that's kind of what he's battling here, and that's why he's able to face Vicious at the end, is that he realizes he is different, that he does stand for something different, that he is not just born to kill and that's all, that he can do something better with his life.
So you could almost say that Spike is the physical, manifested better angel of our nature. Like
perhaps.
He's the version of yourself that you take, as a whole. And if some of the pieces of that whole are negative or hurtful or violent, that doesn't mean that some of those parts can't be positive and helpful and honorable. That's interesting. I never would have considered that had you not said, what if it's all a dream?
Oh.
So, well done.
Yeah.
Well, again, I'm
that's
just
good.
repeating what I've read from the internet, but sometimes it makes sense. I will
That's
say
like 95% of my career is just repeating stuff I've heard on the internet.
Right. That's all our lives now. Taking it out of the dream and more kind of into the physical stakes and everything, though. So where I was going into this, again, I'm a script nerd. I'm always like watching the character arc, seeing what happens. And so to bring back that moment in the beginning where Spike risks someone's life, he's just acting instinctively. He's playing fast and loose. Does he do something different here? Has he changed? Has he learned something? Has he grown? I don't know. I mean, maybe you could say, well, he made a plan with his friends ahead of time. But
he's not really the one coordinating it all.
Exactly. And I still feel like he's risking everyone's life. Like, well, if these 4 random people, I'm trusting Faye to do something, I say. If they all do their job and I do my job, maybe not everyone will die. Because he sits there and lets him push the button, not knowing if everything else has gone according to plan.
Now, here's the thing. If it is a dream, and every character in this dream is some sort of representation of a part of Spike, that would have good cause for him to be confident that the plan is going to go off without a hitch, because he trusts himself more than he trusts anyone ever.
But that's why
This
I'm
is
taking this
true.
out of the realm of the dream, straight into
so-
narrative character
so if it
arc.
goes,
Yeah.
So if it's only there, then I think it still fits, because we've seen him before leave the special aspects of a particular thing up to whoever's better at them, right? Like he's had Ed do analysis.
He doesn't
before.
try to hack things. Yeah.
Right. He tells
He
Jet,
kicks
hey,
beta decks.
Yeah. He
This is
tells
version of
Jet,
hacking.
hey, go get a hold of your ISSP guys. I'm going to walk the beat.
Yeah.
Like, so it could be just task delegation, like you said. And to be clear, I mean, the best team cohesion that we had in the series up to this point is kind of here, right? Because this is just before Faye leaves and Ed and Ein leave and all that stuff. So right before that, we had everybody kind of actually operating on, maybe not smoothly, but they were at least all familiar with each other, right? So like
They were pretty much at their peak as a team.
right. This is as good as they can function. And you have that moment where Jet is on the Bebop
Which-
going, all right, everything's screwed, but then everybody starts coming back, right? And he's like, oh, okay, I'm just going to slip right back into scolding you for not having called me, and like, just like we were doing before. And even though I was just finishing up saying, I was always better alone, and this, that, and the other thing. So it's...
I love Jet.
Yeah, it's an interesting angle to look at it that way, and it does make me want to watch it again, which I probably will do.
But yeah, that's one of the reasons why I do think like, okay, yeah, the dream kind of makes more sense. Like that's why I'm okay to go that route.
Does
this
that
time.
put it at the equivalent of being like the message in Firefly?
In what way?
Like because the last big like crew cohesion bit before the
Before
movie.
everything changes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you could argue that they come together in objects in space.
Well, probably more so than they. Probably more so in Objects in Space, but
I mean, it's also
that's all flashback though.
Well,
even
and-
though the events are taking place before the characters' final moments together, the actors know this will be the final time they're together.
That's
another
more of the factor. I think Cameron
That's a good
is
point.
just them knowing like, oh hey, we just got canceled.
Which is a little meta, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, if you guys don't have any other points from the movie that you think we absolutely have to cover, and if you do, now is the time to bring them up. But if you don't, then let's go ahead and move into our first maybe only segment. I don't know if I had you guys pick out your favorite quote from the movie, but let's move into our first segment. Ricky D, are you ready with the cool intro video that says "Shot of the Show"?
I am not, but if I have just a moment.
Shot of the show. Shot of
Hey,
the show.
I found it, so I'm going to play it right now.
Okay.
All
That
right.
was me. I did that.
That was
Tell
nice.
me your podcast is independent without telling me your podcast is independent. Shot of the Show, as you know, is where we share our favorite visual moments from a given week's episode, or in this case, movie. The visual moments that hit us just a little harder than the rest. Now, I am going to give the caveat here that this whole freaking thing, frame by frame, is absolutely gorgeous. I was watching it with a software that allows me to go frame by frame, so I feel pretty comfortable saying that, and that's how I got these shots ready to go for tonight. So if you don't mind, Ricky D, I don't remember if I labeled them all, but let's bring up Phil's shot first. And Phil, did you write down your time code? Because it was
I did not, because again, I was doing this. I wasn't taking notes when I was watching the movie because I was
You're
not
good. I have it written
not
down.
anticipating showing up tonight. Happy though I am to be here. I was not expecting it, but
Your
I
lack
am
of
as well.
psychic abilities is disturbing, Philip.
you know,
So Phil's shot comes, if you're watching, Phil, did you watch on DVD or?
I did.
Blu-ray?
Actually, I did watch DVD because part of my status as a not quite librarian, I put the interlibrary loan system to good use and was able to snag a hard copy of the DVD through the interlibrary loan service. So
Very, very cool.
yeah,
If you are watching on Blu-ray, I believe the time.
I
code
actually,
is
I
Go
tracked
ahead.
down Phil's time code, so that is what the file that we were using.
Oh, go right ahead then.
yep, there it is.
This is at 52:45. Is that correct, Ricky?
Yes.
Hello, Vivi. So this shot, Vincent has been injured, and he is, this is during his confrontation with Faye, and he licks some of his own blood off of his hand, and it is just there. When you're watching the movie, the first time you're seeing this shot, you're just like, oh, he's just being, just being creepy,
Mhm.
Honestly, it's not until later in the film you realize what he's doing.
Mhm.
But he is, at this point, he's licking some of his own blood off of his hands. And then he proceeds to kiss Faye, which is an awkward scene.
Mhm.
But that is him literally inoculating her against the nanomachines that would otherwise have killed her.
Now here is a really cool thing. Let me first say excellent choice, Phil.
Thank you.
Couple of things here. We get another V word that we can throw out here, vampire, for our
Mhm.
Halloween movie.
Mm-hmm.
And a vampire named Vincent Valentine is a character in Final Fantasy VII. The two characters in this room are Vincent and Faye
And
Valentine.
Faye Valentine.
And he's acting like a vampire. How cool is that? Just a thing that I just put together now when I saw
Happy
him
shout
licking
out to
blood
the
off his-
Final Fantasy VII nerds out there.
Yeah,
we
I
love
know you're
y'all.
all out there. Yeah. I love that. And same thing, you're totally right. I was like, oh, here's the trope of crazy person licks their own blood because they're not afraid of their own mortality.
Yeah.
And then, oh, he's going to kiss Faye because he's a creep. Like, ugh.
Yeah.
Oh, that was actually nice.
Sort of.
him
Yeah, no,
to
I went
do.
through the same journey.
So why would he do that? I guess you could argue at a really basic level, he's thinking, I'm about to wipe out the entire population of the world, and I have a chance to save this really good-looking chick. I mean, if I'm going to be the last dude, I may as well pick a good-looking last female. Maybe that was part of that, or it was like some leftover reminiscence of Elektra's haircut.
Yeah.
And that was
Maybe.
his subconscious going, oh, there's something about her that, something feels familiar.
Hey.
So, if we would jump to the shot of Faye, if you don't mind. This
Yep.
is Cameron's selection for a shot of the show.
There's Faye. Faye. Just driving in what looks like southern Italy, being super cool with her rear view mirror.
And this bubblegum moment, like her super pink ladies, happy pop song while she's going in.
Well, she just got back from the horses. She lost some money, but she don't care. It's all about the journey.
I can't remember what the actual song is, but it makes me think of the Sonic Adventure song, running around at the speed of sound.
So
that's how bubblegum poppy it was.
It made me think of the song from the intro scene for the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie where they're all skydiving into an event at Angel Grove. I don't remember the song at all, but I know that it's very much like we are cool teenagers, look at all the stuff we're doing. It's the 90s. And the song felt like that to me.
Yeah.
I also appreciate the detail of I think it's right after this shot. Faye gets a call and she's getting information and she's bobbing her head
driving
the whole time that she's getting information, like to the beat of the song, to indicate that the speakers in her jump craft are actually playing the music that we're hearing, which is a nice little touch.
Yeah, so as I've said, given more time, there's a couple other shots that I might have picked, but I just like this one because, we see Spike being cool a lot in this series, but this is a moment where we really get to see Faye's cool factor amp up to near Spike levels.
I also just love the detailing of the reflection in the rearview mirror.
And for anybody that hasn't, for anybody that's not in this crew, right, who's not on the Bebop, you could, from the outside, you could be forgiven for thinking Faye is the leader of this crew.
In her mind, she is.
In this shot,
she looks like the leader. She's moving quickly. She's got sunglasses. She can handle a gun. She's very confident.
She's gonna solo this bounty.
Yeah, I would watch a show that was Faye soloing anything. Just like I would watch the show of grown up, cowgirl Ed. Personally.
I would love to have seen some of Faye's whole cowboy background prior to her introduction in Honky Tonk Woman.
I could dig. I mean, there's so much to expand on, and that's kind of why I'm wondering with the live action series, will they do everything we're used to and then season 2 will be all new stuff, or maybe season 3 will be all new stuff? I'm really interested to see where they go with that. Ricky D, if you would like to bring up your choice for shot of the show, my friend.
Yes, I will, and I will talk while I'm doing it. There we go.
Oh,
there's some good
excellent choice.
This was one of my favorite shots. I was talking earlier about the kind of depth of field that they were able to play with animation, and just with a real camera. If something's close to the camera, it's in focus and it's in detail, and anything far away is going to have much less detail. So this is a shot of Spike and Vincent when they're fighting on the radio tower, and I just love this very, very minimalist drawing of Spike. I am not a tattoo person.
Almost impressionist.
Yeah. And I'm not a tattoo person at all. But this minimalist Spike would make a really cool tattoo.
Yeah. No face, just the hair
shape. No face, just the hair.
I mean, I agree with that.
You get a little bit of the detail with the lapel.
You get more
jacket.
More detail on his jacket and outfit.
Yeah.
His face.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
And that's the shot that I pictured immediately when you said depth of field.
Yeah.
And camera work, because I was like, I remember, because there's a slight pan going on in this shot when it's in motion, and Spike is actually walking toward Vincent. So there's two pieces of motion happening that are almost opposite each other while this, from this wide shot, and it's just the coloring in this. It's familiar enough that it feels like the yellow lighting on Bebop, but it's orange enough that it feels kind of sci-fi and different.
And
it's
it's so Mars.
Yeah.
It's the red planet. I mean, it's all the reds and oranges and browns and tans, all those earth tones just hitting.
It's also a
Earth
shot
and-
that you can almost only get away with in anime, because like if you saw
Oh,
this in
yeah.
a live action, you'd be like, what was the focus puller doing? Was he drunk
Yeah.
this day? What's
Just-
going on?
Who's
Right,
on
man.
who's on camera right now?
It's just a shot of angles. What are you doing?
Right.
Like,
But yeah, in the animation, everything, you get to be a little more stylized with it,
And you
works
get
out.
you get so much of the detail work within the structure of the tower itself too.
yeah, the crossing beams, that
The
interconnected
cabling.
structure, yeah. And you get what you need for the story here too, right? You've got the bad guy in a long black coat. You've got the cowboy with a wide stance getting ready to show down with him. Like, you could look at this and with no context and know what's happening. Like, oh, this is a showdown. This is
Yeah.
definitely a showdown.
No, it's very clearly the hero and villain confronting each other.
I am absolutely loving this.
It's
Mitsuki, if you don't mind, my friend, I believe it is my turn.
Wow.
oh
So this, I couldn't choose like the full series of shots where Spike arcs his craft all the way back around to face the guys that are chasing him, but this is right towards the end of the chase where he's going to go take on the last ship, and he just crosses over the, right next to the sun. You see the twin contrails disappear behind his ship, and he comes flying right at the screen. It's the acrobatic ballet that is happening with the ship animation in the whole series, of course, but definitely in the movie. It's just, I love the visuals here, and I love the grace with which his ship flies. Even though we know that it's a struggle, he's in there gritting his teeth, and he's got white knuckles on the controls and everything like that. But the way that he just very casually, like a swan, changes direction and moves like clear water, even while he's
Even in his ship.
vehicle.
Yep.
It's just, it's so
well.
good.
What's the name, Jesse? What's the name of his ship?
Well, I know
Swordfish.
that I always call it the Corvette, yes,
Yep,
but it is
but it
actually
is the
called the
Swordfish.
Swordfish, and it swims through the sky beautifully this entire time. And he's got that rail gun on the front, right, which is like the Swordfish nose, and he uses it so well in this
Surgically.
chase. Yeah, it's
It's-
like everything is planned. It's a couple steps ahead, just like his chess game, right? He's got to shoot ahead of himself. He's got to think ahead to know not to run into that particular line of fire. You guys know me. I'm a sucker for a good ship shot. I think half of my picks throughout the series were Spike in the Swordfish doing something cool, and I'm totally good with that. I mean, I've literally got the Swordfish right there on my wall behind me. It's
right.
it's a thing that happens. So, I love this movie. I'm so happy we were able to get a copy of it for us to share, and I'm so happy that Cameron found one and Phil found one. And this movie, it got buried, kind of at the box office. It didn't do huge, giant, ridiculous numbers, at least in America. Now, part of that could be argued
it was an
that-
anime. It was an anime film.
and it's an anime film about global terrorism that came out in 2002. So there were some stuff
Yeah.
working against it. I mean, if we're
Yeah.
going to be 100%, transparent about it, I'm not going to blame that entirely, but it does add a layer of the movie was for us. It was for the fans, just like Serenity was for the Browncoats. This is for the people that just want to spend a little bit more time with these characters, even if it's not in a way that is going to change the trajectory of the entire series or that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I know that normally here we would do Spiegel Spiel. I didn't have everybody pick out a favorite quote from the movie. If you guys have one that you know off the top of your head, definitely feel free to share it. I will just point out, I really liked that at the end we got another text stinger like we're used to getting from the series, and it actually is probably one of the biggest pieces of support for the It's All a Dream theory. It just says, are you living in the real world? And that's a good question to ask yourself every once in a while, even if, you're pretty sure that you're living in the real world, because perception and reality are not always lined up, but perception is reality. So if you can do your best to make them line up, I think that's a good goal to have. Cowboy Bebop going out the way it came in with the feels, right? Like, okay, I'm in love with this thing. Okay, oh, this thing is over. Oh, am I living in the real world? Wow. Thanks, Cowboy Bebop. I had just a blast with this movie. If I guess we could rate it. I personally, if you're gonna rate it like as an individual thing, I don't know that I could do that. I don't know that I could separate it from the TV show. But I would probably give it like a solid 7.5. Like, I absolutely loved it. I don't know that I would be able to introduce somebody to Cowboy Bebop with it. I think I would have to do that with the show personally. But it is a movie that I'm really happy to own now, and a movie that I plan to watch plenty more times coming up, especially now that I know it's a Halloween movie. I can force it into Mrs. Sutton's Halloween movie rotation.
Yes!
Pretty
Add it
simply,
to
I
the
think.
October rotation.
Yeah, I feel like there's no way that won't happen. I'd like to say hi to Glacial Musher in the chat. Thank you for joining us. And yeah, it's one of those things, like, not having remembered that going in, I was a little bit caught off guard, but then I was deeply grateful to have like just a way in. So let's see, Ricky D, if you were going to give this movie a rating out of 10, what would you give it, my friend?
I was sitting right at the same point, 7.58. It's hard if I'm going to compare it against the episodes in the show. It's not one of the best, but it's also very good. And 7.5 to 8, I guess I need to land on one of those. So I'll go with 8. Very good movie. Lots of fun. At home in the Bebop world.
Yeah. I think it fits the universe nearly perfectly, if not perfectly. Phil, as the super fan, how would you rate this movie?
I gotta go 8.75.
Ooh, digging it.
Yeah. It is solid. It's gorgeously animated. The score is phenomenal. The storyline fits perfectly into the established Bebop world. Honestly, its disconnection from otherwise established continuity is the only thing working against it.
I can appreciate that.
Now, if they had put this storyline in place of, say, episodes 24 or 25 and 26, if they'd done this instead of the Real Folk Blues, and then done the Real Folk Blues as the extended film, I think that's yeah. I think that is the only possible improvement they could have done with it. But I mean, obviously, ex post facto, we're
yeah, right. Maybe the next time I watch through, though, maybe that'll be the order I watch through in. Maybe I'll get to the end, watch this, and then watch the Real Folk Blues.
Yeah, and I mean, we know that, like, I think even per Watanabe, it takes place between between before Brain Scratch.
Yeah,
but I think that if they'd intended, if they'd had this storyline in place from the beginning, that's where we would have seen it. That this would have been the penultimate Bebop storyline.
Yeah.
But if it is a dream, you could watch it at any point. You could watch it just before the Real Folk Blues.
Exactly.
You only see Spike and hear Jet in the quote-unquote real world, if the Bogans are the only real world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Cameron, where would you land?
Yeah, not to be the nanovirus at the Halloween party. I mean, I was really looking forward to rewatching it now after having just watched the series, and it was still a little bit of a shoulder shrug for me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, part of it, I do think the score is very good, but I was really looking forward to hearing some great tunes. And I was surprised that, the movie didn't use that much music compared to some of the episodes. Like, I feel like there's just as many songs in this 2-hour movie as there are in some 30-minute episodes.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair, they couldn't get the rights to the one that they had subtitled it after.
Oh, really? Oh, well, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I wanted more original songs. I wanted more.
More of
more.
Yoko and the Seatbelts.
Yeah, because I think that those last episodes, those last 4 episodes or so have just some amazing tracks in them. I mean, the one I guessed it on, not Hard Luck Woman. Anyway, the one where Ed and I'm leaving. I mean, that has like 3 of my favorite Cowboy Bebop songs in that episode alone.
Yeah.
And then like Real Folk Blues has 2 or 3 more. And I just none of these songs, none of them were bad, but there was really only one that I'd be like, oh yeah, I'd add that to my playlist.
Yeah.
There's that. And then I think what I would want from a movie, because what I want from Cowboy Bebop, the series in general, is at the end, I wanted to know more about Spike's backstory. I don't need to know what's going to happen after, and I don't need all the details. But to be honest, Real Folk Blues, I didn't care when Julia got shot. I just didn't. And so I really wanted, I don't think this movie had to be a prequel, because you want Ed and Ein and everyone, but maybe if they were doing something that involved finding out more about their backstory, so those moments in Real Folk Blues could have more impact, is what I would have wanted to bring this up to like an 8 or something for me.
Which I could see happening if if they'd wanted it to be more of a standalone.
Mm-hmm.
Or rather, if they'd wanted it to be more integrated. I think they wanted it to be more of a standalone, so that people who hadn't seen the series could still jump in and feel welcome.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, try showing someone Advent Children if they've never played Final Fantasy VII before.
They're gonna just be like, okay.
Sure.
So
or
so
like
did you,
But
did you land on a number?
I will now. So I
Sorry.
think originally I might have gone as low as 6. Like, it wasn't bad. It was a fun watch, but it was a shoulder shrug. I think the Dream Theory pushes it up for me. I think that makes it more interesting. It gives it more rewatchability. That's going to push it up to a 6.5, maybe even a 7 if I watch it again and really kind of focus watching it with that knowledge this time. So I'll err on the side of 7.
I was gonna say, if you'd like, I can put you in as a 6.5. I don't want you to feel any pressure.
No, I think I even this discussion has made me appreciate it more. So I think I feel good with a 7.
And
So-
you raise an excellent point about the soundtrack from Hard Luck Woman, by the way.
Yeah.
That
it's so
the
good.
the ending track there as Ed is walking off, as Spike and Jet and Faye are trying to go about their lives again without Ed and Ein. Still, I can hear it even now. I can hear that track,
Cameron's,
and it's just
I can hear Cameron's heartstrings being pulled.
just shredded.
So that means that the crew of the sudden but inevitable Rebop and our 2 wonderful guests give Cowboy Bebop the movie a 7.8 out of 10. Not bad at all, especially for kind of a, like Phil was saying, a standalone thing. And like I said, I don't know that I would use it to introduce somebody to Cowboy Bebop, but I might use it to get somebody who was like if Ricky D from Best Flicks with Ricky D had not agreed to watch an entire anime series with me, but was like, I'll watch a movie, this might be the movie that I would use. I might go, okay, use this, because this is the kind of stuff I know you're into. You like the mob, you like detective stuff, you like, fun criminal crime stories. This might be one that I would go with. There are
I've got another follow-up one for Ricky D.
Movie?
Series.
What do you think?
Shorter, on the shorter end, series-wise. But did we ever try to get him to watch Death Note?
Oh, well, I'm actually really glad that you brought that up, Phil, because as those of you who have been around for a while might know, this is actually the end of season 2 of the Sudden but Inevitable Rewatch.
Well,
which,
what
of
are you
course,
going to watch for
started-
season 3, Jesse?
Of
Yeah,
course
we're gonna
we
have to
started
make a
with
decision.
Firefly and went to Cowboy Bebop. Now, because we have been thinking about this for a while, and we wanted to pick something that it has to be something that I love, and it has to be something that I think I can actually get Ricky D and the crew of the Sudden but Inevitable Rewatch to love. Because if they don't, then it's going to be a whole other kind of a show. So, for season 3 of the Sudden but Inevitable Rewatch, we are going to do a little tiny mini season, right? So between now and the end of the year, we're going to watch some movies together that one of us has seen that the other has never seen. And it's going to be a fun little mini season. It's not going to be very long. It's just going to be while we get our plans finalized for the next season and get everything worked out and get everything evened out so that we have everybody in the places they need to be for that show, which I can actually announce right now. This is season 3 is going to be the little movies. Season 4 of the Sudden But Inevitable Rewatch is going to be Death Note. Ricky D has never seen it. Josh has never seen it. I have seen it many times.
I've never seen
and
it.
I agree with you, Phil, that I
Oh.
think Ricky D will like it. And that makes me even happier to hear, Cameron, because that means I can force you to come back to my podcast and talk about it.
Yeah.
I
I'll be on the other end this time.
I actually just rewatched the whole thing about 6 months ago.
It's one that
So
Mrs. Sutton and I do almost once a year. It was the only anime that I was ever able to watch with her that she enjoyed, and it's because I took the time to find one that would fit her interests already, and then they were just translated into anime, much as we've done with Ricky D and Josh here.
So is
Yeah.
Mrs.
So-
Sudden Butt basically the female version of Ricky D? Is that what we're saying here? Is that
She
what we've
wishes.
discovered?
I'm going to blow right past that
Okay.
as well. And
Okay.
That's
I
not
will
a no.
say that if you are planning to watch, if you would like to watch along with us, or you want to rewatch Death Note with us, it is currently available on, I think, both Netflix and Hulu, but I know it is available on Netflix. Another one of those instances where the English dub is actually pretty good. I really like the English dub for Death Note, so feel free to
It's
check that out. It's higher
solid
quality.
dub.
Yeah, higher quality than a lot of other dubs. I don't know that I would say it's as good as Cowboy Bebop. I would say it is on par with Cowboy Bebop as far as quality goes. So yeah, just a couple of small little bombshells there. So Phil, I'm just gonna say right now, you'll be back for Death Note. Cameron,
Score, dude.
You'll be back for Death Note.
I'll have to watch it.
You would love Death Note, and even if you don't, I would love to have you come
I've
on.
always
and
been
trash
curious, so yeah, it'll give me an
I
excuse.
think Callie D is excited to watch Death Note with us in the live
Nice.
chat. She sounds like she's ready to go. Yeah, it's just, really quickly, the premise of the whole show is that a teenager finds a notebook, and inside the front page it says whoever's name you write in this notebook will die. And the teenager tests it out, and it turns out that that's true. And this all takes place within about the first 8 minutes of the first episode, so don't consider it a spoiler. But that's the premise of the show. So if
Okay.
that interests you, that's where we're at. Now, I think we're pushing 2.5 hours, you guys. It has not felt like 2.5 hours for me personally. I have been having a blast. I feel like I could keep talking about this series and this movie with you guys all night. But since we don't want to take up everybody's entire life, let's wind this thing down. And the way that I'm going to start doing that is I'm going to say, Phil, if the wonderful people out there would like to get more Phil in their lives, what's the easiest way for them to do that?
If they haven't had their fill of me, you can find me on Twitter at FlipWriter. You can find me in my blog at swordsoftheancients.com. Otherwise, you can see me here on several episodes of the Sudden But Inevitable Rebop. And you can find me on Session Zero, a D&D podcast with Lincoln L. Hayes. So
Awesome.
Very cool.
find me in places talking about generally nerdy shit.
I love that kind of shit.
I will be fairly busy in the next couple of months as I am wrapping up library school. And again, as mentioned at the top of the episode, welcoming a new child home this week. But
Yeah.
I look forward to catching you all for some Death Note talk.
Yes, so really quickly, I believe the current plan is to start Death Note in January. Basically, when we started Firefly this year, we will be starting Death Note next year. Another quick note, that series is going to take us about 6 months to get through. So we're going to do it 1 week, 1 episode at a time. We loved doing 2 episodes at a time for Cowboy Bebop. I really wish we could have done 1 per because they deserve that. But the time constraints this season just did not work for it. So we're going to fully commit to Death Note. And like I said, it's going to take us about 6 months to get through it because we're going to have like a chunk of 8 shows. Then we're going to take a break for a week. Then we're going to do 8 more shows. Then we're going to take a break. And then we're going to do, I think, 9 shows. There's some math involved, but it's going to take a while. Cameron, I have said the name of your show more than once, but if you wouldn't mind, please tell the wonderful people where they can get more of you.
Sure, yeah, you can find us on our podcast, Green Shirt, A Newbie's Trek to the Next Generation. I am watching Star Trek The Next Generation for the first time. We've just reached Season 5, and so far Season 5 is a doozy. There are some great episodes, which actually kind of makes it harder to make fun of, but I'm enjoying watching them very much. You will hear Jesse coming up. He's recording with us in just a couple of weeks. That episode should drop a few weeks after that. So you'll hear him talk about Silicon Avatar. And otherwise, yeah, you can find us at GreenShirt87 on Twitter. Green Shirt, if you search wherever you find your pods, you should find it there.
I just realized I wasn't following you. I have corrected that.
Oh, I think I just noticed that the other day, Flip.
God.
Writer.
You know what?
But I didn't unfollow you. So
You
I
didn't.
kept
You
I
didn't
kept you on.
unfollow me. You stuck around.
That's friendship, ladies and gentlemen.
I know, right?
Speaking of Ricky D from Best Flicks with Ricky D, my friend, where can people find you on the internet? When's the next episode of Best Flicks coming out?
You can find me on Twitter at BestFlixRickyD. You can find me here at Sudden But Inevitable. Phil's showing off the hat.
Trying to figure that out in reverse camera angle is just tricky, man.
And I have my new Many Saints in Newark episode coming out this weekend. I will make sure to post about that on Twitter. I'm coming out with new episodes pretty much every other week, which seems to be a pretty good cadence for me. And go ahead and listen to some of my backlog. I've probably got an episode or two of a movie or a TV show that you might want a little more information on.
I highly recommend checking out Best Flicks with Ricky D. I listen to him all night here on this show, and I still enjoy it. So
his voice is surprisingly soothing. I mean,
it really is. Like, even though he doesn't want you to be happy, there's something about his voice that's just relaxing.
The nights that I just fell asleep during undergrad, just...
Of course, I do have to say thank you one last time to all the beautiful, wonderful people in our live chat. Rosie and Callie, thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you for coming through the seasons with us as you do. Callie says, my people, this was so much fun. We really are your people, and we hope that you consider us that way. Rosie, thank you so much. Good night. Thank you for joining us. I think we should sign off, you guys. Let's go ahead and sign off. Let's get out of here. Let's let these folks get home. And I'm going to say thank you one more time to the 3 of you, because I had a blast, and I couldn't have done this without you guys. And I cannot wait to get into Death Note, and I cannot wait to force you guys to watch some movies that I really love. And you know what? I'm willing to watch some movies I've never seen before for the first time in a bit of a twist. So let's go. Philip, Cameron, Ricky, me. For the Sudden But Inevitable Rebop, this has been my friend.
I'm Philip.
I'm Cameron.
This is Ricky D, Best Flicks with Ricky D.
And I'm Jesse. We'll see ya, Space Cowfolk.
Ba-da-ding-ding-ding.